I'm not hearing that about Lyon. I'm not hearing the players are not being paid and all this sort of stuff. So clearly they're meeting some sort of obligations, because we sit in this country, we see Sheffield Wednesday not paying their wages. We see Reading, we see other people in
That's
leagues,
a fair point.
and all of a sudden they get sanctioned because they're not able to meet the obligations. And that gives you, these guys have got debt, and they seem to be able to pay their way.
And after we heard this on breakfast yesterday...
No, there's not a captain.
No.
I'm sorry. You need a captain who's going to lead by example.
Former Australia skipper David Campese singing the praises somewhat of Lions captain Maro Itoje. Today, front row for the tourist Pierre Schoeman has given his reply.
He's probably one of those guys that you respected, playing against him, but it went even through the roof, breaking glass ceilings of the reality of how great leader he is. He's just...
Good evening, here's the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. Adi Oladipo alongside Harry Symeou. Big show coming up over the next 3 hours. And don't worry, there will be some Arsenal chat. Christian Norgard. Where's that come from? The deal looks to be done. But what about the striker? What about the winger, Harry Symeou? Of course, we have any say on that. Also, we want your calls about times you were gutted a player left your club. As on this day in 2007, Thierry Henry, arguably the Premier League's best ever player. Is that an argument? I don't think it is. I left Arsenal to join Barcelona. So look, I know a lot of you are going to text in. Get your texts in 810 809. You can give us a call as well. 03717 223344. The times you were gobsmacked, or maybe even crying in your cornflakes, that a player left your club. Will Villa fans be gobsmacked if they see Emi Martinez in Manchester United red? Dan Bardell will tell us more. Elsewhere, the fixtures have come out tomorrow for the EFL season, which is only 6 weeks away. So we're going to be discussing what clubs have been the most active with Sam Parkin. And it'll also be time to look at the latest in Europe as well. The European football expert Kevin Hatchard will join us. We're on until 10 o'clock. Remember, if you want to be a part of the show, you can. Phone lines are open right now. 03717 223344 is the number to call. It's the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. Harry Symeou, how are you, sir?
How's it going, man? It's been a while.
It's been ages. They've kept us apart.
I know.
They've
Terrible.
Kept us apart. It's incredible. I don't know what they're doing. Like, talkSPORT boss is listening. How have you kept me and Harry Symeou apart for so long? Look, loads to talk about. I do want to quickly talk about England and 21s. Obviously, the game has just ended. England beat the Dutch 2-1. Harry Symeou, Harvey Elliott were fantastic. Harvey Elliott should not be playing for the 21s.
Yeah, it feels like he's beyond that, doesn't it?
He is beyond that.
It's a hard one under 21s football, because it feels like as the game's developed and progressed over the years, the under 21s seem to be getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
And every now and again, you get the odd player that you look at and you go, you're probably a little bit past that stage in terms of your development, and you probably should be knocking on the door of the senior squad. But listen, he made the difference, and I mean, the goal he scored to win it was just brilliant, and you could see that he was miles above everyone else.
And look, to be honest, he hasn't played as much football as others as well. I mean, Arne Slot's given him minutes, hasn't he? And I'm talking minutes here. Like, here's 5 minutes, Harvey. Here's 10 minutes at the end of the game. Here's no minutes, just go and warm up. So he's probably just itching to play football. You forget the kid in him just wants to kick around sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. You want to be playing, you want to be active. I suppose, how interested or enthusiastic you'd be about a tournament like that is dependent on maybe how your season's gone. I mean, for him, it's an opportunity to show what he can do on a continental stage. It's not the seniors necessarily, but it is an opportunity to show what he's capable of. And, I'll ask you, will he be at Liverpool for much longer, do you think? Is he a player that people will potentially be looking at if he's still not getting the minutes going forward?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? That's it. I mean, surely it gets to any player's career where, okay, it's nice to be at a big club, right? But surely I've got to think about playing minutes. Like, I started this career because I want to play 90 minutes. I don't want to come on for a big club every 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And look, the issue for him is, I mean, we was talking about Henry being the best player ever in the Premier League. Arguably, top 3, top 4 is Mo Salah. That's his issue. That's who he's fighting against, Mo Salah. And he simply won't, because Mo Salah plays every single game for 90 minutes. I mean, there could be a little window of AFCON.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a window.
The thing is, we look at players and we judge them really, really harshly, don't we, in terms of their careers. Like Harvey Elliott, we've just sat here and said, shouldn't be playing at this level, should be playing at a higher level. Ultimately, circumstances dictated why he maybe hasn't kicked on in terms of his club career, and that circumstance is Mo Salah. And there's nothing you can do about that. But I think for someone like Harvey Elliott, if it was in his mind, and I don't know that it is, but if it was a consideration of his to move on from Liverpool, this is a great way to put yourself in the shop window.
What's he worth? What's Harvey Elliott worth in today's crazy market with, let's not forget, the English tax? Because we know that adds another 10 to 15 million on your price bracket when it comes to being sold within the Premier League. What's Harvey Elliott worth?
I think if someone was to make an offer of £30 million, I think if I was Liverpool, I'd consider that.
Okay, Brighton, I think, have offered in and around that. I think that maybe even up to 40. So Liverpool should be considering. I think you've
got to consider it.
Should he consider Brighton?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure, because he needs to be playing regular football. And I know there's been a lot of examples over the years of players that have left the bigger club and taken a step down to try and kickstart their career again, and maybe they've got lost in the crowd a little bit. But I really do think Harvey Elliott's got the talent to go and make a difference somewhere else. And I feel like a club like Brighton will probably be a perfect landing spot for him. The expectation's not too high, but they also play a good enough brand of football and a good enough style for him to still be able to showcase what he could do. So for me, that's a move that if I was Harvey Elliott, I'd be seriously considering.
There's some good players on show for England on 21s. Gerard Quansah started at centre-back. Obviously, he's making his way to Bayer Leverkusen. Nwaneri came on, has started a couple of games, has now sort of unfortunately been pushed to the bench. He came on. He must be looking at it. Obviously, look, it's different to Harvey because Nwaneri's only just broken through, but he's fighting Saka. Do you know what I mean? He's fighting Saka.
Yeah, I think with Nwaneri, though, I don't think the long-term plan is for him to be a right winger. I think that was something that Arsenal were maybe forced into a little bit as a result of some of the injury problems and issues that they had at the time. I think they view his future as being a slightly more central player. But if he's not fighting with Saka, he's fighting with Odegaard. So for him, it's a difficult situation. But I think mentally for him, this might have been a bit of a difficult season because he broke in, had a really good impact, and everybody's looking at him and thinking, this kid's the next best thing. Lots of hype around him. And then he goes back down to the bench, and he didn't get an awful lot of minutes towards the end of the season. And there was people saying that it was mentally to kind of make that massive step up and then have to step back in line. Is probably quite a difficult thing to cope with. Yeah.
England will play the winner of Germany versus France. And I do wonder, when it's all said and done, how important these tournaments are. England are the reigning champions. Look, for these kids, it's massively important, right? You get a trophy. And I guess that kind of trophy-winning mentality hopefully goes to the senior squad. But all in all, is it important? I mean,
I think it is for those individuals involved. I think if you compare it to the senior level, there isn't as much wide interest, and that means that people will look at it and maybe downplay it at times. But
we downplay it, don't we?
Yeah, I think in
on
this
the continent, I think the Dutch would be livid they're out.
Yeah,
Germany and France care about winning this. Spain getting knocked out, they care about this. But for some reason, I think we downplay it over here.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? That in this country, it feels like we downplay a lot.
Yeah, Premier League or nothing.
Yeah, because we've got such a great domestic product. I think sometimes we turn our noses up at some of the continental competitions that for so many others means so much more. And I think if you look at Spain and their record, for example, in the under-21s, and then you look at what they produce on the senior level, there's a correlation there. You know, you produce good players consistently, you bring them through, that's the breeding ground. They go on and they're successful at the senior level. So it doesn't guarantee you success at that point, but it does bode well, I think, and it does give you encouragement that your setup is doing something right.
You know, I think the issue is, and I think it's this simple. Most will think if you're good enough, you bypass the 21s. I think that's the issue, isn't it? Like, the best players don't really see the 21s. Rooney never saw the 21s. Owen never saw the 21s. You know what I mean? Ultimately, like Harvey Elliott's playing for the 21s because ultimately Thomas Tuchel don't think is good enough for the seniors. So I think that's part of the issue. So it's a tournament of players that, look, I think there's loads of good players there, but there's ultimately a lot of players that probably won't make the senior squad. That, okay, just play 21s then.
Yeah, players are getting younger and younger. We've been talking about Lamine Yamal all season.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about Ethan Nwaneri, made his debut for Arsenal when he was 15 years old.
Crazy.
Players are getting younger and younger and younger. And as a result of that, I think under-21s football has maybe got lost a little bit somewhere. And I think it's the case with the Premier League clubs as well. You look at the Premier League 2, and I've covered a lot of Premier League 2 games last season for my club, Arsenal, and the team is getting younger and younger. I'm turning up and I'm getting the team sheet and there's 17 and 18-year-olds in the 21s. Rather than those kids playing in the 18s, they're playing in the 21s.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just all come down in terms of the ages. And as a result of that, I think maybe we need to think about restructuring maybe the age categories and age groups. I think that might be something worthwhile doing.
I guess a lot of these young guys are maybe on trial for potentially going to the World Cup in the summer. That's the dream, right? For a lot of them. Do you think any will? I know it's putting you on the spot. I don't think you have the squad in front of you, but do you think any will make that jump?
It's difficult to say because, you know, so many players have under 21s careers and then disappear. In terms of the international scene, it happens a lot. Like
loads of caps and then nothing.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And others get, I think, stuck at that level. And then obviously you get into the tournaments and there's a sort of dispensation to have 2 or 3 that are older. Some of them end up being that guy and staying there for a little bit longer.
Do you think Harvey could?
I think Harvey...
He's the star man in this setup. Ultimately, this is proven ground for him. He's clearly too good for this. I think we saw the goal, was watching it together, and he walked through on goal. It was that easy for him. Do you think he could make the jump? Or do you feel like that position that he's trying to kind of get for England, Cole Palmer's there, Foden wants it, Jude Bellingham sometimes loves that 10. There's almost too much competition. And the worst thing is they're all young.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. It's not solely down to, is Harvey Elliott talented enough? I think talent-wise he is. I think there's players in that England squad that he's probably more talented than in terms of technical ability, level. Look at what he's achieved with Liverpool. Look at what he's won at Liverpool. So in a lot of metrics, he would win over so many other players in that England squad. But the problem is that it's about profiles. It's about systems. It's about where does he fit in. If you're looking at him as a player that's going to play from the right-hand side, it's too much competition. If you're talking about him coming into that 10 role, what does that 10 role look like in the England setup? And can you carve out a place for Harvey Elliott? The questions are endless around this. And that's why I don't tend to look at players and go, you know, you're not good because you're not making that squad. There's so many factors and reasons why.
Think England are going to win it?
They could do.
France
they could do. You know, France. Exactly. France are frightening. But again, that comes back to what I was saying before about the correlation between having a strong under-21 side and a good senior side. It's a breeding ground. You're bringing players through, and a lot of those French players won't make it into the French senior squad as well.
Yeah, good luck on that.
That's just the way it works.
I've had a look at the French senior squad, and there's about 8 under-21s in it already.
Yeah,
so again, if you're good enough, you're old enough. All right, up next, talkSPORT's Ollie Klink's going to bring us the latest transfer rumours, and we are going to be discussing the match winning Harvey Elliott. Again, you heard us there, heavily linked with a move to Brighton, but maybe more teams after that showing this evening. You're right, you're listening to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18 plus, BigGambleAware.org. and welcome back to Transfer Insiders here on talkSPORT. Adi Oladipo alongside Harry Symeou. Let's get an odds update now with Ladbrokes. Let's welcome in Chris Wood from Ladbrokes. Chris, as always, my man, appreciate you coming on. Let's jump straight to this. England under 21s through to the final. They'll play the winners of Germany versus France. Surely the mighty England are favourites now.
Yeah, England 5-6 fabs, and I think it'll be about each of two whoever they face in the final. They'll probably be slightly shorter against France. France are 3-1, Germany are 9-4. Really looking forward to that game kicking off in 45 minutes. Germany slight favourites to win that one at 7-5. The draw's in at 5-2, and France 9-5. Nick Voltemade, the main goal threat there for Germany. He's 17-4 to score the first goal, 6-5 to score any time. And Matthijs Tel, obviously been at Spurs this season, not really impressed so far, but he's been pretty good in this tournament. He's 5-1 to score the first goal and 8-5 to score any time.
Let's turn our attention to the Club World Cup. What are the odds looking like in terms of outright winners around that competition at the minute?
Right, the outright at the moment is pretty interesting. PSG, the Favs there now 11-4. I didn't think they were going to take this tournament all that seriously, but they've really stepped up. Definitely worthy favourites there. City are next in at 9-2. Real Madrid not really caught fire yet. They're 5-1. Bayern looked a bit of a shadow of themselves the other night. They're in at 11-2. Chelsea obviously progressed reasonably comfortably from their group. They're 12-1. Flamengo in at 16s. Palmeiras 18s and Botafogo 20s in the outright there.
Interesting stuff there.
All right, the Brazilian team's really making a resurgence, man.
Incredible. Those South American teams, apart from Boca Juniors, are looking fantastic.
Not so great, that.
Not so good, Boca. Arsenal have signed the mighty Christian Norgard. Surely they're favourites to win the league now.
No, surprisingly not. I mean, we took the Florian Wirtz signing a little bit more seriously. That's not to say I do think though Norgard is a canny signing, and he really deserves his go because he's been a stalwart at Brentford for a while. So I really don't want to run him down. I think it's a good squad addition, but Liverpool are 15-8 favourites. Obviously, the transfer business has been really impressive so far, and they're the best team last season. Arsenal win at 12-5. Man City are 3-1. Chelsea are 14s, and Newcastle 16-1.
You mentioned Brentford there. I think they might struggle having lost their manager. They're losing some key players as well. What are the relegation odds looking like at the moment around them in particular? Because it looks like Keith Andrews is going to be the new manager, and there's a number of exits now on the cards.
Yeah, it is an interesting one with Brentford. We've clipped them in today from 5-1 into 9-2, and like obviously on paper you have to think this could be a season where they may struggle, but the ownership and the model there that they have doesn't get a lot of things wrong. They'll have had a contingency for this for quite a long time. Thomas Frank, his departure's been on the cards for a while, and if Keith Andrews gets the nod there, they must be really impressed with him. Elsewhere in the market there, Sunderland are 1-4, as you'd expect. Burnley are 4-9. Leeds are the most likely to stay up out of the three promoted teams. They're 10-11. Wolves are next in at 7-2. Then it's Brentford 9-2, and Everton, Fulham, and West Ham are all 6-1. And to be honest, I would be more likely to go with one of those than Brentford. I just have a lot of faith in how that club's run.
Top man, Chris, appreciate as always for coming on, my man. Thank you very much. That was a look at the latest odds with Ladbrokes. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our Odds Boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18+, gambleaware.org.
All right, let's welcome in talkSPORT's Ollie Klink now for some latest transfer gossip and news. The kid in me, the child in me, wants to go straight to Isak to Liverpool, but I'm going to behave. I'm going to be professional.
Calm down.
I'm going to be professional. Down. And I want to ask him for the latest on Mbeumo to Manchester United or Spurs first, Clinky.
Yeah, we don't just deal in rumours on this show, Ado. I mean, let's start with that Christian Norgard story because it's developed quickly throughout the day. We understand that Arsenal have now agreed a fee with Brentford for their captain Christian Norgard. The fee will be £10 million with £5 million in add-ons. Spurs were also interested in him. It would have been him linking up, of course, with his former manager, Thomas Frank, but he is heading to the Emirates. He's seen as a replacement for Thomas Partey, with Partey set to leave the Emirates. He's 31. He is an established Premier League player. He can slot in at number 6, and Jorginho has also left too. So it feels like a good addition to their squad. They'll also have Zubimendi, who's coming in, Rice and Marino in those kinds of positions. But for me, it feels like an Arteta kind of signing. We know he likes Premier League experience, especially when it is a player coming in that is potentially going to be starting on the bench. I guess my question for Mr. Symeou would be, do you see this as Arsenal getting a bit of a bargain for a Premier League captain, or do you see it as a signing that doesn't necessarily improve Arsenal, despite the fact it fills a bit of a hole?
When the news broke earlier today, I'd be lying if I said I jumped out of my seat with excitement.
I'm happy you said that, because I was about to play your clip. I was about to play the clip you put on Twitter, because you was not very excited.
I was not very excited. I was not overly happy about it. To be honest with you, it feels like, the more I've thought about it throughout the day, it feels like a maintenance signing. It helps us maintain a level, but it doesn't move the needle and push us to that next level, which is why I'm a little bit frustrated. It's nothing to do with Christian Norgard. He's a good enough midfielder. He's a decent midfield player. I don't want to take anything away from him. I don't want it to come across in that way. But when you're told that this is going to be a big summer, when you think that Arsenal kept their powder dry in January, when you think that last summer was a little bit underwhelming as well, I was expecting Arsenal to make the type of signings this summer that will move the needle. Now, they might still do that, but this one in isolation doesn't do that.
I guess, though, Harry, sorry, Ali, I was just going to say, I guess, though, could you argue that Zubimendi is more of the needle mover, if you want? I mean, not every signing surely has to be a big get you out your seat signing. Sometimes they do have to just improve the squad.
Yeah, but then you're going into risky territory, because we've been saying for such a long time that Arsenal are nearly there, but they're not quite there. Now you're not just trying to rebuild your attack, you're regenerating your entire midfield as well. And I just felt that keeping Thomas Partey alongside Zubimendi, and obviously that was Arsenal's preference, by the way, because they tried to keep Thomas Partey, they had those conversations, that would be a much better pairing, Zubimendi-Partey versus Zubimendi and Norgard. And you're not having as much transition and change, because you've got a guy that's already been there, done that, plays that role to perfection, who could also assist Zubimendi, by the way, in coming to terms with the Premier League, understands that transition from Spain to England. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that it's a bad signing, because I don't feel that strongly about it, but I certainly don't think it's a needle mover, and I don't even think it improves us or even maintains that. I said it was a maintenance signing. It might even make us slightly worse.
No, we'll talk a bit more about Arsenal later, because loads going on at the club, or loads not going on in terms of incomings anyway. Let's talk about Liverpool quickly, Clinky. Harvey Elliott potentially leaving the club, looking really good at the moment for the under-21s. We're hearing Brighton have come in with an offer.
Yeah, and there's also not just interest from Brighton. There's interest from Bayer Leverkusen as well. They are admirers of Harvey Elliott, which I think would be a really exciting move for him. You know, as much as there would be game time for him at Brighton, and you know, it would be a decent move within the Premier League. It would be interesting to see him challenge himself and go abroad, especially to a club like Leverkusen too. I heard you guys chat about this a bit earlier on, about the value of Harvey Elliott, and you're almost there, Harry, because Liverpool want about 40 million for him. I think you said 30, didn't you? So in that kind of ballpark. And yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think he only played 18 games in the Premier League last season. I was wondering, Ade, how would you feel as a Liverpool fan if he did go elsewhere and you lost him as a squad player?
Gutted. I'd be gutted. I think everyone's obsessed with having 11 world-class superstars on the pitch. No squad exists like that. I do feel like, yes, he's not Mo Salah, and yes, he's not maybe a Szoboszlai or McAllister. He's not of that mould or that ilk, but off the bench, he's fantastic. But I just feel for him, he needs to operate away from that. That mindset of being a sub needs to go away. And I think if he does go to a Leverkusen, a Brighton, or anywhere he goes, he's going to start. And I think he'll develop a bit better. It must be gutting for him as a young player. And that's probably why he's with under-21s, because he knows he's going to start. Just to get 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, League Cup rollout against bloody Plymouth or in the FA Cup, whatever. He wants to play. So I'll be gutted as a Liverpool fan, but happy for him, Clinky.
Yeah, he scored that goal against PSG, didn't he? When they won, away from home at the Parc des Princes game. They should not have won, to be fair. But
hey, we're not talking about that. What's that got to do with the transfers? What's that got to do with it?
Just thought I'd get it in there. No, but I mean, I agree. And also, it's funny because he's only 22, but vastly experienced. He's almost played 100 games for Liverpool.
Crazy, isn't it?
So as much as you're signing a player who is young, at the same time, he has got a lot of experience under his belt. So whether it does end up being Brighton or Leverkusen, we're yet to see. But yeah, it could be that he is on the move this summer.
Which is a better move for him, do you think? Do you think he would benefit from staying within the spotlight of the Premier League? Or do you think going to someone like Bayer Leverkusen, getting a fresh start abroad, one of the bigger clubs in Germany, do you think that's a more attractive proposition for a player like Harvey Elliott?
I think you've got to go abroad. I think we've seen the route now. A lot of these players, especially young English players, are going abroad. You play in Champions League football. You're in a different league, different challenges. I think he goes abroad, and he's young enough. As Clinky just said, he's only 22. He's young enough to go abroad for 3 years, come back, and be an established sort of maybe even an England player. I think there's more chance of him getting into Thomas Tuchel's squad if he goes and plays for a Leverkusen than if he sticks around and he gets on for 5 or 10 minutes for Liverpool. Final one. We're going to end with your club, Clinky. Elanga, potentially to Newcastle. Thoughts on it as a Newcastle fan, and thoughts on it and what it means potentially for your club as well.
When you brought up there a Swedish player connected with Newcastle, I thought you were going to try and be cheeky again there.
How did I not think of that quick enough, Dan?
But yeah, I mean, we know that Nottingham Forest rejected a bid from Newcastle of around 45 million for Elanga. They don't have an intention of selling him, but if they did decide that they wanted to, they want north of 60 million for him. I thought he was terrific for Forest last season. 6 goals, 11 assists. He was one of their standout players. I think he would work well in an Eddie Howe team too, and it is an area they need to strengthen. Jacob Murphy was brilliant last season, a bit of a surprise package, but he is the only natural right winger. And so it's certainly a priority for Newcastle in the window. Is 60 million maybe a bit too much?
Maybe. For sure too much.
And do you know what? Do you know what? Up until now, I've had sympathy for Newcastle in that they've got this money, but the rules and the PSR stuff has restricted them from being able to really accelerate their project. If they go and drop £60 million or north of that on Anthony Elanga, I'll have no sympathy for them anymore.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
Why don't you rate him that highly, guys?
No, we do. I just feel like
it doesn't level you up. Yeah. It doesn't level you up.
Yeah, I don't think he takes you from 5th in the league to 3rd.
They should sign Harvey Elliott.
I think Newcastle now needs to look at signings that really push them to maybe even challenge. And Elanga doesn't do that, does he? Elanga does what... No, he's better than Norgard. I was going to say he does what that Christian Norgard does. He's a bit better than that. But I think he's just a good, solid player. Like, how much better is he than Jacob Murphy? How much better?
I mean, it's an interesting point because Murphy scored 9 last season and got 14 assists. So his numbers were clear of Elanga. But to be fair, I would say that we know that Newcastle, if they are put off by that price, they are looking at other options. Johan Bakayoko from PSV, Dortmund's Karim Adeyemi, and even Mo Kudus from West Ham as well. I think West Ham are trying to start a bit of a bidding war there. So it might be that Newcastle are put off by that big price. But yeah, I mean, I know I mentioned it, but he would also be linking up with his teammate from Sweden. Willis Sula's also there.
Well, 1 second. He won't be linking up with his teammate from Sweden because his teammate from Sweden won't be there. Ollie Klink, thank you very, very much.
Ridiculous.
All right, Newcastle fans Newcastle face Villa on a tough opening game at Villa Park. So when we come back, we're going to turn our attention to Aston Villa and we're going to hear from Dan Bardell.
It's officially Sir Gareth Southgate. The former England manager received his knighthood at Windsor Castle, recognition for his services to football.
I was more emotional than I thought I might be, and I think partly to be able to bring the parents with me as well, and my wife, who at different stages of my life have been incredible support, an amazing honour. Grateful to the help of so many people for being here.
It could be a Barcelona dream move for Marcus Rashford, as we understand the Spanish giants are eyeing a temporary move for the United forward. But will there even be a place for him in the side?
Yamal on that right-hand side. You could have Nico Williams, if that looks like he's going to go through on the left. You could probably have Lewandowski down the middle, and behind him Rafinha.
And after we heard this on breakfast yesterday...
No, there's not a captain.
No.
I'm sorry. You need a captain who's going to lead by example.
Former Australia skipper David Campese singing the praises somewhat of Lions captain Marouane Itoje. Today, front row for the tourist Pierre Schoeman has given his reply.
He's probably one of those guys that you respected, playing against him, but it went even through the roof, breaking glass ceilings of the reality of how great leader he is. He's just in a class of his own, and I love spending time.
Good evening, Transfer Insiders. Adi Oladipo alongside Harry Symeou. We said that we're going to speak about Aston Villa, and we're about to do that right now. Let's welcome in talkSPORT 2 presenter and a massive Villa fan, Dan Bardell. Dan, 1 second, before we get into it, you've got one Pablo Angel behind you, you've got Steve Staunton. Are those the right two? I feel like Dwight York should have a place up there, no? Don't you think, Harry?
Yeah, I
feel like Yorkie should be in there.
They're left field choices, but I like them. Yeah. Angel especially.
Angel's fantastic, isn't he?
Amazing.
I met Juan Pablo Angel probably a month or so ago now, and literally one of the most handsome men I've ever seen in my life.
Has he still got his long hair?
Nah, short.
Yeah, probably best
amazing, incredible show.
Yeah,
incredible show.
All right, if you could have a third, honestly, shirt, I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here with random questions. Who would be your third shirt there?
I'd always put Ian Tyler there.
Yeah,
Ian Tyler would be the one for me. What a goal.
Good show. All right, let's talk about your club. Facing issues at the moment. There's so much uncertainty around PSR, which I hate because Villa have money to spend. They've got owners that want to spend money, and they're almost being blocked from really breaking into that top four because they can't spend money and having to sell players. And we'll talk about selling the women's team in a minute, which I think is a smart and canny thing to do. But where are you with that? That must be hard to take as a Villa fan when you're hearing about players having to be sold, like Emi Martinez and Ollie Watkins, just to kind of balance the books a little bit.
Yeah, the rules are frustrating. They're not really there to help teams like Villa, teams that want to compete. I think Villa and Newcastle are probably in a similar boat in terms of wanting to be regulars in the top four, wanting to take the clubs to the highest echelons that they can in the Premier League. But the rules don't allow it because they're always playing catch up in terms of turnover with the big boys and the teams that are established and have been there for a long time. I think there's a lot of Premier League teams that are happy just to exist in the Premier League and be there year upon year, and that's absolutely fine. But that isn't what Villa want to do, but the rules really do hamstring them. And it is frustrating because you end up losing good players and you don't want to. But I think, the main thing is that they showed last season that they lost a big player in Douglas Luiz. They lost another player who'd done well in Diaby, and they managed to replace them and have a good season and work things as cleverly as they could. So the right people are working at the club to try and navigate through these things. I guess that's the overriding positive to take from it.
I do think Villa have spent a fair amount of money, though, over the last few years.
Let's not pretend they've been shopping at Aldi. They've been spending quite a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. You've spent a fair bit of money, Dan, over the last few years. But, I look at Aston Villa now, right, and I think you qualify for the Champions League, which was an incredible achievement. You then done, I think, very well in the Champions League. And then your Premier League season ended up with you finishing in 6th place just outside of the Champions League positions. I think going into next season, it is huge for Villa. Because all the work that you've done over the last 2-3 years, if you miss out on Champions League football again because of these PSR rules and because of the need to then start letting players go to balance the books and all the rest of it, I feel like Villa could take a major step backwards. Having missed out on the Champions League, because it's so important to follow qualification up, I always feel, are you concerned now? Do you think there's a bit of pressure on Villa going into the new campaign?
I think it fits in a little bit with what I just said. I think the right people are there, and I genuinely believe that as long as Unai Emery is at the football club, Villa will be in and around the top 6, pushing for top 4 or top 5, whatever the coefficient is that year. And I think we'll always be competitive because he's the most important person at the football club, and he's revolutionised this football club and took us to places that we could have only dreamed of when Steven Gerrard was in charge. He picked us up in 17th. He improves whatever player is there. Every player that plays under Unai Emery ends up improving and ends up, Villa had no players to sell a few years ago. No one would have wanted any of their players. Now, at the very least, the players that are there are worth a lot of money, and if they do have to sell, they do bring good money in, and they do bring profit in. But I don't think it's so much PSR that's the problem this summer. It's more the UEFA squad cost rules, because Villa's wages to turnover ratio is absolutely sky high. That isn't sustainable, and I think the club's quite happy to take a fine with that this season. But next season, if they fail again, the punishment will be higher. Could be points deductions, could be being banned from Europe. It literally could be anything. So the club are very, very wary of that. And I think the UEFA squad cost rules are the bigger reason for probably having to sell someone at the moment rather than PSR.
Let's talk about potentially 2 of your highest earners. Emi Martinez, the record books will say he's the best goalkeeper in the world and has been for the last couple of seasons. And Ollie Watkins. There's a lot of talk about both of those leaving. Ollie Watkins, there's been talk about Ollie Watkins for the last 12 months, and Emi Martinez has been such a massive figure at the club, both in the change room and out on the pitch. I think we see it, right? Yeah. How big a blow either of those two leaving? A striker that scores consistently in the Premier League and a goalkeeper that is clearly one of the best in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think goalkeeper and number 9 are the 2 hardest positions to get right, and if you get them wrong, you will struggle. Everything transcends from the goalkeeper, in my opinion. And if you've got a striker that can score 20 goals and also get double digits assists, which is what Ollie Watkins has done for the last couple of seasons under Unai Emery, they'd be very, very difficult to replace. I will say that nothing happens without Unai Emery being kind of content with it and being happy with it. And I do think if Emi Martinez goes, that solves kind of PSR and the SCR rules for Villa, because he is the highest earner. And I don't believe that would happen unless Unai Emery was okay with it. And also the fact is, I think Emi Martinez, by the sounds of it, is open to a move. You don't change agents to the agency he's changed to without there being something in you moving. And I spoke to someone last week who knows him pretty well, and that they said to me, probably a 70% chance he leaves. That was the state of play last week. And the problem is that I think Atletico and Manchester United will have to sell their goalkeepers that they've got in the building already for anything to happen, and that might not happen. Emi Martinez would be really, really difficult to replace, but there's no getting away from the fact that he wasn't as good last year. He is 32, I think, as well, so he's not going to play forever. If Villa do sell him and they get that high wage off the bill, they'll back themselves to get a replacement in that can become as good as Emi Martinez. But saying that, he's a world-class goalkeeper, and he is, what he's achieved since he's been at Aston Villa with Villa and with Argentina. Villa will struggle to get someone that's better than him. And on Watkins, I still believe that he'll stay. I guess the slight concern is, and Harry will probably know a fair bit about this, is that if Arsenal don't get Gyökeres, if Arsenal don't get Sesko, they don't get that main number 9 in over the next kind of 2-3 weeks, maybe they do fall back and look at Ollie Watkins. And we do know Ollie Watkins is an Arsenal fan. We know that kind of every player has their price at Villa because of the stuff that we spoke about earlier. So there is a chance that happens, I guess. But I'm kind of at ease just because of what I said earlier, that I know Villa have got the best person in charge to navigate this in Unai Emery.
Yeah, Arsenal are big on Ollie Watkins. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not the number 1 choice at the moment because of, I think, the stage that he's at in his career and various other factors. The club didn't want to pay what Villa were asking in January to get him in. But, I do think there's a possibility that they return to that. I think Dan's right. But on the Watkins thing, I mean, Dan, you're a massive Unai Emery fan, and I understand it, right? From a Villa point of view, he's taken you to incredible things. I wasn't such a big Unai Emery fan when he was in charge of my club for a number of reasons that we won't go into now. But do you think, I know you said that things don't happen without his kind of say-so and okay. Do you think he's almost done a bit of damage, though, to the whole kind of Ollie Watkins relationship? Because he went with John Duran for a bit, didn't he? Yeah. And then the club ended up selling John Duran because there was this huge amount of money on the table for him. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we kind of got to turn back to Ollie Watkins, but then Rashford was there. Do you think Ollie Watkins maybe feels a bit underappreciated and as a result is maybe more open to a move than he would have been under different circumstances?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. But what you've said there, I think Ollie Watkins was always the first name on the team sheet. He played every single week, and last season that changed. There was kind of mitigating circumstances behind it. He was carrying a few knocks. He didn't have a pre-season, and then he did have that battle with John Duran, and then ultimately he had the battle with Rashford as well. And Villa fans will know that Ollie Watkins is at his best actually when he doesn't have competition and he knows he's playing every week. But despite all that, like I said, he's still got double figures for goals. I think he scored 16 Premier League goals. I think he was. He still gets double figures for assists. And for me, I wouldn't change him. I'm more than satisfied with Ollie Watkins as Villa's centre forward. And, you know, you're taking a risk if you take him out and replace him with someone. But there's no doubting that he wasn't kind of at the top of Unai Emery's list last year. The other two number 9s did manage to replace him at various points during the season. But for me, with Villa fighting on a Thursday, Sunday, I'd want the guaranteed productivity that Watkins gives you with, you know, a Europa League campaign and a Premier League campaign, 2 kind of avenues into the Champions League. Watkins he's proven at that level, and he'd be my number 9 to start the season.
Dan, I could ask you 100 million more questions, but you know how it works. You've been on talks. We've only got you for a short time. Appreciate you coming on, my man. Thank you very much, Dan Bardell.
See you later, lads.
Who knows more about Villa than Dan Bardell? Nobody. No, nobody, right?
Jinx, double jinx, whatever that thing is. That kids
a bit of breaking news. I mentioned at the top of that section that Villa are looking to sell the women's team to help with PSR, having recorded losses totaling 195 million over 2 years. So basically, they're going to sell the women's team to themselves and cover themselves. But that's a whole nother discussion anyway. All right, when we come back, a nice little feature here. Garage, obviously in response to not the music type of music garage, but in response to the film F1. We'll explain when we come back. Love it. Takes me back to a time when I was young. This does.
You still are young.
I'm not young. Look at the grey in the beard. I'm not young. I've lost the hair. I've got grey in the beard. The back aches. The knees ache. Everything. All right, we just discussed what Villa need to do in order to fix their squad. Now it's time for this.
Oi, that needs fixing, mate. Welcome to the talkSPORT garage.
Yeah, Transfer Insiders, don't say we don't help you, because what we're going to try and do is fix your squad. Obviously, this is in reference to the new F1 movie, right? That's come out today. Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, you probably know what I'm talking about. So, we will take you into our own garage here in the talkSPORT HQ, and we're going to do a bit of DIY for some squads. We both got a couple of squads each. I'm going to start with the mighty Manchester United, who had an horrific... I don't even have enough time to fix their squad, but United had the worst season ever. Like, the worst season ever.
Shocking, wasn't it?
I still can't believe it. I actually still... There's a part of me that still can't believe that Ruben Amorim's in a job, but it's not his fault. The players that he got are just so bad. Look, they've started fixing their squad. Cunha confirmed, and Burma looks like he's going to be confirmed as well, but they need so much more. I mean, I always thought, and everyone says this, right? You don't win a championship, or you don't win any games without a good goalkeeper. Onana's got to go.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just simply got to go.
He's one of a few that have got to go, to be honest with you. I think this is the kind of job that when you bring the car into the garage, you're going to have to call the customer back and tell him it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, this is when you think the mechanic's taking the mick. Yeah. But ultimately, he's gone underneath your hood, and he's like, underneath your hood, so American. He's gone underneath your bonnet, and he's like, okay, we need a few things fixed here. All right, so let's do this quickly. Onana, 100% needs to go. Centre backs. I mean, I know Lenny Yoro's come in and he's a young kid. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't see it.
I'm not sure.
I don't see it. Sandro Martinez. I don't see it anymore.
And fitness problems galore for Lisandro
Maguire's probably their best centre back at the moment, which is saying something.
Which shows you that they've not progressed from 5-6 years ago when they brought him in and everybody was talking about him being a great signing. Then obviously he dipped and there was all this talk about him not being good enough for a club of Manchester United stature. But now you fast forward and we're back in the same place where we're talking about him as one of their better defenders. They just haven't moved forward in any way, shape or form.
And that's why when I say Ruben Amorim's not good enough for it, to be honest, I don't think you could... Klopp would struggle.
Yeah, anyone
would struggle with that mess. And then you look at the engine room, which for United has been so creative over the last few years. And look, Bruno's still doing his stuff, and you've got to give him credit, although he was close to leaving a few weeks back. But Casemiro's still running around for them. And Casemiro's still running around, and he can't run. That's the issue.
I think the biggest disappointment for Manchester United's got to be the vast amounts of money that they've thrown away on forwards that are just not good enough. You know, they've tried to revive the football club by trying to catch players early, players that were maybe on a good trajectory on their way up. They brought Højlund in.
That one, needs to be... Whoever sanctioned that, whoever actually saw him and agreed that sign-off for that amount of money needs to be looked at carefully.
Yeah, for sure. But
that's horrendous.
It's not just that one. I mean, Joshua Zirkzee another one. I mean, in fairness, I looked at Joshua Zirkzee and...
Something about him.
Yeah, there's something about him. And when he was playing in Italy, there was a part of me that thought, this guy could go on to that next level and he could be a very good Premier League player, but not as an out-and-out 9. He had to be the second striker, an almost 10/9. That's what Zirkzee is. His strength is to bring other people in the game, but then you need your wingers to be functioning around him. You need another striker in the side that, you know, has got the ability to kind of put the ball in the back of the net, and obviously they don't have that. And so it's fallen on him, and it's really not his skill set.
All right, go on. So that's United. We could go on and on and on, but we don't have enough time. Who's your team?
I've picked a couple of teams, but the one I'll start with is West Ham United.
Ooh.
I covered a lot of West Ham last season, and I was so disappointed by them pretty much every time I watched them.
There's parts of me, that don't feel sorry for them. They wanted Moisey out, didn't they? They were screaming. There were banners, and Moisey won them a trophy. Look what Moisey's done with Everton. And look, ultimately, they wanted Moisey out. It's not that they wanted Graham Potter in, but they wanted Moisey out. Sometimes you get what you wish for.
Yeah, for sure. And Graham Potter's come in, and I thought at the very least you'd start to see a change in style. You'd start to see them play with a bit more freedom. And I never saw that at any point. And you look at West Ham's squad, right? And it's not perfect. Of course it's not. That's why it's in the garage. But you're talking about people like Jared Bowen, Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paquetá. There's a lot of talented players in that group. And I really did expect Graham Potter to come in and be able to kind of just get them going a little bit. And even if it meant they were a little bit vulnerable defensively at times, that would be okay, because this was him making his mark. stamping down his authority on the group, and it's just not happened. And I interviewed him a couple of times last season after games.
Tough, isn't he? He's a tough interview,
he's a tough interview. He was frustrated. It was coming across. It didn't come across as though he kind of really knew what the next step was and what direction they were heading in. I don't think he'll survive long into next season if things continue in that way.
Same. All right, my next one is a team that I've actually got a bit of a soft spot for, and that's Bournemouth. I love their manager, Andoni Iraola. And if they didn't have this little blip towards the end of the season, I mean, he potentially could have been up for manager of the year. And I think he would have been at Spurs. He was favourite for that job for ages. And then they fell off a cliff a little bit. But my main concern for Bournemouth is that they've lost all of their backline pretty much. The whole backline's gone. So it's actually incredible. Obviously, Huijsen, we know, is at Real Madrid. Kirk has gone. I think that's going to be announced in the next couple of hours. Kepa's decided to leave a number one spot to be Arsenal's reserve goalkeeper. Is beyond me. And their other centre back, we know he's been linked everywhere else in the world as well. And then there's talk about Symeou, there's talk about Kluivert. And if I'm Iraola, I'm just pulling my hair out. Like, I've just built this squad. We're playing great football. It's ready to take that next step, maybe even challenge for European positions. And now I've lost everyone.
Yeah, but that's the way of the world, isn't it? That's the way it works. When you're at a club where you don't necessarily have that ability to hold on to those players against the bigger clubs coming in and trying to take them away from you and prize them away from you, that's unfortunately going to happen.
If he gets money to reinvest it, then fine.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
But how many times are you going to get it right?
You can't. Yeah.
You can't keep, like, Brighton are probably the only example you can think of that consistently have to revamp and regenerate and generally get it right.
Yeah, Brighton and Brentford over the last few.
Yeah, there's no room for error, though.
Yeah, you look at Southampton, they kept doing that, didn't they? And all of a sudden, you struggle. All right, one more. What's the final club you got?
I've got Tottenham.
Hey, surprise.
Shocker. You might think that I picked them just because I'm an Arsenal man.
Really? No, it didn't even cross my mind.
That's not the reason. I don't think this needs a whole engine rebuild. But there's a few advisories on the MOT, put it that way, because they've brought in a manager that just is going to play in a completely different way to Ange Postecoglou. And I looked at that squad, and
that could be a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing, but I don't know that they have the squad necessarily to make that transition. So I look at their team, and I think there's a lot of technical players, there's a lot of good ball players, but are they capable of getting in a compact shape? Are they capable of staying concentrated, cutting out the mistakes? I don't think they can. And I think Thomas Frank's game is not going to be exactly the same as it has been at Brentford for all these years. He's going to have greater resource. I expect him to push on in terms of his style. But I do think that he's going to need a few more of his type, workman-like players in there. And I don't think Tottenham have got enough of those types of characters and streetwise characters to make that change. So I'm not saying they need to rip it all up and start again. I think it's a much better squad than what you saw from Ange Postecoglou in the Premier League, at least in terms of results. But there is work to be done there, I think, this summer. I think it's really important.
There you go. Don't say we don't help your clubs. Hopefully the chairman and the managers have been listening to take some ideas from us. We want to take some phone calls from you guys as well. Now, phone lines are open, 03717 2233 44. Today, in 2007, so way back in 2007, Arsenal sold arguably their best ever player, the Premier League's best ever player, Thierry Henry, to Barcelona. And I think it's fair to say a lot of Arsenal fans are still heartbroken by it. What move, whether incomings or outgoings, really hurt you or put a smile on your face as well? Give us a call, 03717 2233 44.
Sir Gareth Southgate admits he was more emotional than he thought he would be while receiving his knighthood for services to football. He says being given the award from the Prince of Wales, patron of the FA, was particularly special.
You can see when he's watching England, when he's watching Aston Villa, that he's a genuine football fan, and he was deeply passionate about the team doing well and how he might help as president of the FA, and was I getting the right support when I needed it. So it was an immense backing to have.
Now, how's our very own Danny Murphy finding the Club World Cup?
I haven't watched any. Watching games with half-empty stadiums is tedious anyway. It's boiling hot. The tempo's not great, apart from the South American teams who are A, used to playing in it, and B, in the middle of their season. So that in itself makes it somewhat ridiculous. You've got teams playing who are in the middle of the season. You've got groups of players from Europe who are having a bit of a jolly up because they've got to be there, don't really want to be there.
Elsewhere, Crystal Palace's place in Europe may have been boosted by Lyon's relegation from the French top flight over finance issues. The club is owned by now former Palace shareholder John Textor. Lyon are appealing, and Simon Jordan's questioned the credibility of the sanction.
What we normally see when a club's in absolute disarray is people don't get paid. I'm not hearing that about Lyon. I'm not hearing the players are not being paid and all this sort of stuff. So clearly they're meeting some sort of obligations, because we sit in this country, we see Sheffield Wednesday not paying their wages. We see Reading, we see other people in
That's
leagues,
a fair point.
and all of a sudden they get sanctioned because they're not able to meet their obligations. And that gives you, these guys have got debt, and they seem to be able to pay their way.
And Lions and Scotland front row Pierre Schoeman says the tour to Australia is about more than just the players.
I have to feel the responsibility of, I think, what's it, like 50,000 and more fans coming to Australia. So you have a massive obligation and responsibility. It's not focusing on what's ahead, it's about now. We are the selected guys, management, players in this team, the squad now, to make it happen. So you have to take that responsibility.
Good evening, you're listening to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org. Adi Oladipo, Harry Symeou. Just gone 8 o'clock. Still to come, we're going to have the latest from Europe and the EFL as well. And we want your calls for the next section about players that you were gutted that left your club, because on this day back in 2007, arguably the greatest player we've ever seen in the Premier League. It's not even an argument, is it?
No, not
It's not even an argument. Thierry Henry, and I say this as a Liverpool fan, Thierry Henry left Arsenal back in 2007 to go to Barcelona. And look, I mean, Arsenal fans were heartbroken. Heartbroken.
I still am.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
So you can pop out of the studio if you want and call us. And then come back. I'll take
I'll
your
pop
call.
out of the studio and have a cry, I think,
I'll
instead.
take your call, but 03717 223334. Who broke your heart when they left your club? We are taking your calls in about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, we've got Harry Symeou here. Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, which is always doing very, very well. Going, quick plug for you there, our YouTube channel.
Thank you, man.
Let's talk Arsenal. We have to sort of start with Norgard. I mean, that's the big talking point at the moment. It's a deal that came from nowhere. I guess it's a deal that came from nowhere because we expected Partey to stay. Looks like he's going to leave the club. What'd you make of it? You briefly spoke about Ollie Klink, but your floor is yours now. But got a longer time to kind of tell us your true feelings.
I'm a little bit underwhelmed by it, if I'm being honest. Just because I really did feel like this was a summer in which Arsenal had to level up again, take that next step. You go back to last summer. I know it's easier to say these things with hindsight, but it was a little bit underwhelming. We brought David Raya in on a permanent. Calafiori came in, was injured a lot, didn't play as much as we'd have liked. Mikel Merino spent the first 2 months out.
He's been good since.
But it's been good since. Yeah. But again, have we seen the real Mikel Merino? Because he's been playing at centre forward for a long time. So, you know, those signings didn't really change much. Raheem Sterling came in, and the less we say about Raheem Sterling at Arsenal, the better. I think that was a disaster of a signing, if we're being honest. So you come to this summer and you think, you've really got to level up now, and you've got to take that next step and go to that next stage. And we've known that Thomas Partey's contract was coming to an end for ages, right? And listen, I'm not even sitting here and saying that the decision to part ways with Thomas Partey is the wrong one, because there are a lot of factors that you need to consider here. There's the salary, there's the contract length that he's after, there's his age, there's his injury history, which is a big thing as well for Arsenal fans. So I haven't got an issue with Arsenal and Thomas Partey necessarily parting ways, but The question that I keep going over in my mind today is, are Arsenal better off now with Christian Norgard coming in and Martin Zubimendi coming in than they were with Partey and Jorginho and potentially Rice as cover for the 6th role?
Yeah.
And
so have you levelled up?
Have we levelled up? I don't think we've levelled up. I don't even think we're at the same level.
You think you've dropped?
I think it might have dropped a little bit because everybody's really excited about Martin Zubimendi, myself included. But I was really excited under the premise of him coming in and sharing that role initially with Thomas Partey.
Yeah.
I think he gets to come in. He's got someone there who knows the role inside out, who's played it so well for such a long time, who understands Mikel Arteta's game, understands the players around him, understands what that transition from Spanish football to English football is all about, how you navigate that, how you get through that. And I thought if he's there and Zubimendi comes in, you can slowly pass over the baton from one to the other.
Yeah.
And that makes you really strong. Then you take Partey out of the equation. And again, he's going, that's it, it's done, whatever. But then you've got to go out and get someone else to come in. And Christian Norgard comes in as a really physical, powerful player. If you look at his numbers, they're pretty good. But I'm going crazy with the way people are looking at players these days and judging players. And maybe I sound really old.
That's awful.
It's like numbers. I read something on my way in, and it was said that he's got more defensive duels won, more tackles won, or something like that, those types of metrics than Thomas Partey. Well, he plays in a team that has far less possession than the team that Thomas Partey's been playing in.
So you almost have to have more duels.
Exactly.
And you have to run more.
You have to be defending
all those
more.
things, So there's always going to be positive on that side. Yeah.
And it just feels like people are trying to spin the fact that Christian Norgard is a decent midfielder into him being this great midfielder. And I don't see that as being the case.
I'm happy you said that, because every time your team is linked with someone, automatically fans will then start to find the positives of that player, rather than maybe look at, okay, but how does it make us go from second to first? How does it make us go from Champions League semi-finalists to finalists and maybe winning it? And those type of signings aren't necessarily Christian Norgard. And look, I do think Arsenal are going to make bigger signings, but you're right. The type of signing to take you to 97 points where you're guaranteed to win the league isn't Christian Norgard. It's something a bit more special, a bit more higher. And I guess that leads into the striker conversation, because I feel like me and you've been having this for 2 years, haven't we? And still, there is no sign of a striker coming through. Is it going to be Šeško? Is it going to be Gyökeres? What's going on? Is it going to be Ollie Watkins? What is going on? Like, why Arsenal not just saying, like you did with Declan Rice, best in class, we need him, here's 100 million West Ham, shut up, give us our player. Why are you not doing it one of those? I don't understand.
It's difficult to put your finger on what exactly is going on, because there's so many conflicting reports. Just the other day, I think Duncan Castles reported that Benjamin Sesko was asking for a release clause to be inserted in his contract and had crazy wage demands. And you're thinking, okay, well, walk away from that.
Yeah.
And then yesterday you hear that Victor Gyökeres has told Sporting that he wants out.
Saw that.
And you think that maybe Arsenal are going to pull in that direction. And then you hear from Miguel Delaney that actually there's not that big a gap in terms of the valuation between Arsenal and RB Leipzig for Sesko. And to be fair...
Who would you want out of the two? Right. The way you play, the way they play, age, profile, all those things. Who is the best fit for Arsenal out of those two? Because those two are the front runners, clear front runners.
They're the front runners. I think that I want someone that's going to come in and make us better tomorrow and not the day after.
So that's
Victor Gyökeres.
Okay.
And I do have my doubts about him. The problem I've had all summer so far is that I'm not totally convinced by any of them. And that's why it's so easy.
That's horrible,
that's why it's so easy for me to flip-flop from one to the other.
Agreed.
But just to be clear as well, on those reports that I mentioned there and the conflicting nature of those reports, I'm not seeking to discredit anyone's work, because they know more than me. I haven't got a clue. I'm just sitting here giving my opinion.
You say that, but sometimes I feel like these reports are for report's sake. Like, we haven't put a tweet out today. Let's quickly say something.
Maybe.
Sometimes it's that. Okay, on the basis of you want someone that's just going to come in, almost guarantee you goals, how far then down the pecking order is an Ollie Watkins? Where you kind of know, with the service that he'll get from Saka, and I'm guessing Martinelli, who I think is going to have a really good preseason, he's going to get the opportunities. My worry with Ollie Watkins is he seems to be 1 in 4, 1 in 5 in terms of putting his opportunities away. But how far away is he from Sesko and Gyökeres?
Not far at all.
Okay.
Because his numbers in the Premier League, I think,
are
more important. Are more. What's the word?
They're
I'm
worth
looking for
more
here?
in terms of currency. than the others.
The question, the way someone put this to me the other day, and I thought this was fantastic. A YouTuber, Deluded Gooner, put this to me, so I've got to give him credit for it. He said, "What's the exchange rate? If Gyökeres scores 39 goals in the Portuguese top flight, what's the exchange rate? What does that amount to?
What I can tell you as a Liverpool fan, Darwin Núñez got nearly 30 in the Portuguese league, and you've seen Darwin Núñez's record at Liverpool and how many times he misses. So that's it right there for you.
Whereas with Watkins, you're probably going to get, I'd imagine, 15 league goals.
Yeah, minimum,
and you probably get 10 assists out of him as well, because he's got that about him and he brings that to the table.
And he's cheaper. Okay, he's a little bit further on in his career in terms of his age, and that might restrict how far Arsenal want to go in terms of making that investment. I believe that was probably the issue in January and why they didn't get him. But there's an obsession around Arsenal because, as you said, we've been talking about a striker for 2 years now. It feels like everybody's so sort of hell-bent on getting that one player in that's going to score X amount of goals, when actually what you need to do is increase the outputs of the attack, generally speaking. Because Trossard and Martinelli's numbers were nowhere near it last season. Yeah. Same with Martin Odegaard. That's 3 players in your attack that have all dropped off. So actually bringing someone in who can facilitate as well as putting the ball in the back of the net is really, really important. And someone like Ollie Watkins might bring you a bit more of that. So maybe I'm mishearing you, but it sounds to me like if I had to say first choice, it sounds like you're moving to Ollie Watkins. Or am I missing it?
No, I wouldn't say he's my first choice, but I would say that if we couldn't get one of Sesko or Gyökeres...
Okay, so Gyökeres is still number 1.
Gyökeres is number 1 for me. Sesko's number 2.
And Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins is number 3. Yeah. But there's not much distance between them.
I get you.
I don't look at any of them and go, I desperately want you. If you put Alexander Isak into the mix, it's not even a conversation.
It's a different...
If you put Julian Alvarez in, it's not even a conversation.
I mentioned the fact that you chucked 100 million at West Ham for Declan Rice. And West Ham didn't want to sell their captain, right? Star player. They won a European trophy. Didn't want to sell him. Newcastle do not want to sell Alexander Isak, clearly. But why have you not gone here, bang, 140 million Isak then?
I don't know.
Okay.
And this is
interesting, though, isn't it?
And this is
you've been desperate for this position. He clearly, and I hate to admit it, is an Arsenal player. You look at him, and I mean, we've been talking about Henry. I mean, it's almost like for like the way in which he plays and Henry plays. Clearly, there's something there with Isak.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a want to sign him, and there's obviously an admiration for the player. I don't think there's a football person in the world that doesn't admire Alexander Isak. So that is all. Club. Yeah, that is all fair and probably true. But you look at someone, you look at certain players, and you think they are so good and such a good fit. I'd move heaven and earth to sign them. I don't feel that about any of the strikers that we're being linked with. And in answer to your question about going and putting that money down on the table and just getting the deal done, I can't tell you why that's not happening.
It's frustrating, isn't it?
I know that the players are on holiday. I know that pre-season doesn't start for another couple of weeks. No, but what I'm saying is, if you sign a player today on the 25th of June or you signed him on the 2nd of July, it makes no difference because he's not going to join up with you until pre-season. Yes. So you're going to use that time to try and negotiate the best possible deal. So I'm relaxed in that sense. But it feels like from last summer, you saw a bit of a shift in Arsenal's strategy. You saw them go massive to get themselves back into a position. And now it feels like they don't believe they're that far off. And as a result of that, they don't feel the need to throw mega money at things anymore.
And look, maybe that is the case. Very, very quickly on Ollie Watkins, because I know me and you are not stats fans, but I think this is a very good stat as well. Yeah. This is his goal contribution, 75 goals and 34 assists in 184 games in the Premier League. That's 109 goal contributions in 184 games. I almost hate the assists because strikers of yesteryear never used to, that stat was never applied to Alan Shearer or Andy Cole, did it? But it's a stat that applies now. 109 contributions in 184 games is good numbers.
It is good numbers.
And those are Premier League numbers.
And they're Premier League numbers. And Mikel Arteta's teams are built to share the goals. If you look at the seasons Arsenal have been most competitive in, there's been a sharing of the goals. So to flick the switch and say we're going to bring in this number 9 now who everything's going to go through, I don't think works for us, and I don't think that's necessarily what Mikel Arteta's looking for. I'm not saying he doesn't want a 25, 30 goal a season striker, but I think he will look at the bigger picture when recruiting whoever this person is.
Agreed. It's going to be fascinating to see who Arsenal do get. One thing we do know is they're not going to get anyone like Thierry Henry, who left Arsenal back in 2007. Remember, he did return, didn't he? That famous goal against Leeds, which was just one of the greatest nights at the Emirates. But who's hurt your heart leaving a club? Because on this day, as I said, in 2007, Arsenal did sell Thierry Henry to Barcelona. Give us a call now, 03717 223344. Who's broken your heart?
Two.
It's a nice little track, nice little tune, very summery, which is good. All right, this is the Transfer Insiders. Oladipo, Harry Symeou. We're going to switch gears there. We're going to talk a bit more transfers later, but what we're going to do now is have a bit of heart to heart. The moments that we were heartbroken, the times you've been gutted about a player leaving, or times you can't believe the day you signed an unbelievable player. But more focus on the times you were gutted about a player leaving. The reason being is today, back in 2007, Arsenal sold their best player, the iconic Thierry Henry, to Barcelona. And Harry, look, you're old enough for that to have hurt you back in the day. That must have been. Is that the hardest one you've had to deal with? You've had a few Arsenal ones.
Yeah, we've had a few. I don't think the Thierry Henry one was the hardest one because he'd kind of given us everything he could give us, and it didn't feel like Arsenal as a football club were moving in the right direction necessarily at that point. And when you've got that kind of affection for a player and you sort of search deep down in your heart and realise that actually it's the best move for them, there's a part of you that can accept it and make peace with it.
That makes sense.
And that's how I felt. I think one for me that really did cut deep though, and it's again an Arsenal one. No, it wasn't even that. Do you know what it was? Robin Van Persie.
Oh, I see.
The Robin Van Persie one. If you grew up when I grew up, right, that was at the height of the Arsenal-Man United rivalry.
Yeah, that was war between these two. It was
war, exactly. And there was this kid, Robin Van Persie, that comes from the Netherlands. Arsenal took a bit of a gamble on him.
Always injured.
always injured. Arsene Wenger backed him to the hilt, gave him every opportunity, and he just started to get into this rhythm of playing regularly. I think he had a couple of seasons where he was scoring some brilliant goals, and you think, this guy's the talisman, future, like Arsenal captain. Is going to go on and be that for many, many years to come. And then he wants to jump ship.
And then go to them.
And go to them of all people.
And the worst thing about that move was that he was fantastic for them.
Oh, it was awful.
Dude, he won them the league in the first season.
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, no. You know what? That's painful. I think that's worse than mine. Only because yours went on and actually did well. Fernando Torres to Chelsea. I would never, ever forgive him. That one hurt.
Still haven't, have you?
No.
You can tell by your tone of voice.
That one hurt so bad. Just because that Fernando Torres and Gerrard link up. And I know people will say, oh yeah, but he was coming to the end, his leg to slow down. I didn't care. Because he was that striker we'd wanted for so long. And, that one pains so much. And to go to Chelsea as well, obviously. And again, a bit like your Arsenal-Man United rivalry, that rivalry between Chelsea and Liverpool was brewing. It
was big then.
It was big back then. We had played him a couple of times in the Champions League. It was really feisty. And they were the mighty Chelsea. They were spending all the money. And for them to come and take your player for 50 million... it hurt. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Let's get a bit more heartbreaking, a bit more heartfelt stuff. Ben, the Everton fan. Go on, Ben, which one hurt you? I have a feeling Rooney might come up here. Ben, which one hurt you the most?
No, it's not Wayne Rooney. It's Andre Kanchelskis. We had him for 18 months and we signed him from United after he just won the league. And he was unplayable. He got 16 league goals from right wing and countless assists. And he went to Fiorentina. I remember the morning. I went to the paper before mobile, so I went to the paper shop, got the morning paper, the local regional Daily Post and Echo it was, and the rumours that there was a deal to be done, and I was inconsolable, couldn't think of nothing at all day but that. And then I bought the paper on the way home, the afternoon edition, and he was on the back of the paper with the Fiorentina shirt, and I was just devastated.
It could have been a Liverpool shirt. You're lucky it was a Fiorentina.
You know the worst thing?
Nick Barmby cut deep as well because he went to Liverpool from Everton, and that was a nasty one.
I guess the worst thing, Ben, as well. Sorry, but I guess the worst thing about back then, as you say, is that there's no rumour mill because there's no Twitter.
No.
So it just happens, don't you? You read the back page and it's done. It's gone. Whereas nowadays you kind of know 2-3 months out, don't you? So you can kind of soften the blow a little bit.
Prepare yourself.
That's a good one, Ben. That's a good one. All right, let's go. Loads of calls coming in here. Let's go to Jamie, the Liverpool fan. Jamie, go on. Which one hurt the most?
Guys, great show as always. It's great to listen to you on the drive home, boys. So,
top man.
Excellent. For me, growing up as a kid, I was I'm in love with Liverpool. I go to watch them, but Michael Owen, I was a kid playing in schools, and I was Michael Owen. The Arsenal game in the FA Cup final. I was
fantastic!
Never have won that final.
And it was the last 20 minutes of mayhem, to be fair, and Michael Owen steps up and puts on a plate. And I think every Liverpool fan up and down the country as a young kid used to practice the Owen finishes and the celebrations. And I think when he sat on the bench in the Champions League and didn't come on, you thought he's going to Madrid. And the fact that happened that hurt me so much. But I think Torres as well. I think you guys mentioned it earlier. Torres to Chelsea. We've had historically great number 9s, and he was unbelievable for us. I think as well at Liverpool, he was sensational. The fans adored him. There was Adidas adverts for him and the chants and the songs for Torres. But I think just in general, guys, I think losing a striker is probably hits home more than anything else. You can lose players and you can feel a bit bitter, but I think you losing a striker, I think that's when it kind of hurts a little bit more than any other position, I'd say.
Top man, Jamie. Honestly, great stuff there.
Just on that FA Cup final, you should never have won that FA Cup final.
And you know who lost it for you?
Go on.
Your greatest player of all time.
Well, no.
He had about 100 chances in that game.
The referee lost
100 chances.
I was going to say they were practicing the Michael Owen finishes. What about the Stefan Onsho handball on the goal line? Were they practicing that?
Can't remember it. There's no VAR back then.
That was a horrible final. I was gutted by that.
But you forget about Owen leaving and going to Real Madrid sometimes because he was fantastic and it's upsetting for him. I feel like he's so slept on how good he was.
Yeah, he was unreal.
Owen was a Ballon d'Or winner. I think there was a conversation he said the other day about Owen at a certain age and Mbappe, and people laughed. And I think people need to remind themselves of how good Owen was.
Yeah,
that goal for England at 18 in the World Cup was against Argentina.
Yeah, he was
incredible.
He was sensational. He really, really was. The problem with Michael Owen was that there wasn't that longevity.
So there was no love from any club.
Yeah.
Like Newcastle fans hate him. United fans hate him, obviously, and Liverpool fans don't like him. So it's a shame. But Michael Owen's a great guy. I sat with him many a time. Fantastic footballer. All right, let's go to a Michael, a Newcastle fan. I'm trying to think of the big Newcastle ones. Which ones? Go on, you fill us in. Which ones hurt the most?
Well, the biggest shock for me, lads, was the departure of Andy Cole.
Oh, yeah.
Because the fans were swamping the stadium. And I remember Kevin Keegan coming down from
on the stairs, didn't he? Kevin Keegan on the steps.
You remember that?
I remember coming out talking to the fans. I remember it. No manager would do that today.
Yeah. And it was shortly after we brought the world record transfer for 15 million, signed Alan Shearer from Blackburn Rovers.
Well, that didn't go badly, did it?
It worked out well in the end, then, didn't it?
You what?
It worked out well in the end, then.
Do you know what it is, right, lads? By the way, I love your show, by the way.
Thank you very much, mate.
Alan Shearer was, he wasn't, like what we've got now. We've got a jewel in the crown right now, playing in our team, and everybody wants him. All over the world, they all want him. Shearer wasn't going to get it done. And I tell you what it is, mate. If you went to Manchester United, he's got 260 Premier League goals. With a service, he played 10 years under a regime, and he got. You think of the service he could have gotten elsewhere.
Oh, it'd have been, honestly, it would have been incredible. It really would have. You forget that as well sometimes, Sheeran. Look, you got to love the fact that he was loyal to Newcastle.
Yeah.
But if he did move at the time that Sir Alex wanted him, can you imagine how many goals he would have got?
Yeah, for sure.
The amount of trophies he would have won.
And I think as much as he loves Newcastle United, and I think deep down
he'll have secret conversations and say, "Look, we could have done so much more." Stick with us. Actually, we're gonna continue this because there's so many phone calls and texts coming in. We're gonna do this for another section. Might as well, isn't it? What player moving broke your heart? Again, this is all in reference to Arsenal leaving. Thierry Henry leaving Arsenal back in 2007 to join Barcelona. We've had some good ones already, but keep them coming. 03717 22 3344.
Sir Gareth Southgate admits he was more emotional than he thought he would be while receiving his knighthood for services to football. He says being given the award from the Prince of Wales, patron of the FA, was particularly special.
You can see when he's watching England, when he's watching Aston Villa, that he's a genuine football fan, and he was deeply passionate about the team doing well and how he might help as president of the FA, and was I getting the right support when I needed it. So it was an immense backing to have.
Now, how's our very own Danny Murphy finding the Club World Cup?
Right, look at this, hey, look at this.
This makes me feel young again, man.
Yes, yes, indeed. This is when I had hair. That's how long. Michael Richards was in this video. Do you remember this? He was in the video driving a Range Rover.
Was he?
Happy belated birthday to Michael Richards. Well, it was his birthday yesterday. Transfer Insiders, Adi Oladipo alongside Harry Symeou. We are talking footballers that broke your heart when they moved, when they left your club. Footballers that kissed the badge and all of a sudden are on private jets holding the scarf of another club, as is the case with all footballers, honestly, with all of them. You're getting your texts in as well as your calls. Remember, you can still call in 03717 223344. We're going to go to the call phone lines in a few moments, but you got some texts as well, Harry.
Yeah, we got one from Alan, and he's referenced a few transfers. He's an Arsenal fan. He says, love the show, God bless, guys, but he says it's before both of your time, but Frank Stapleton going to Manchester United. He also mentioned Liam Brady to Juve. Oof. And this is a big one.
Go on.
That I've got to be honest, had completely gone out of my head. And I completely forgot about for a minute. I don't know how. Ashley Cole to Chelsea.
Is enormous.
The way that came about, the secrecy, the secret talks, all of that stuff, that made that one really, really tough.
That might be. I mean, obviously, look, Sol Campbell from Spurs to Arsenal's the one, right? That's the one. But Ashley Cole moving at the time as well.
That was when you knew football was going in a different direction as well.
Yeah, it changed.
Because Chelsea come along with all their millions, and listen, that's the way it's gone and whatever. But at that point, you're looking at it and you're going, Arsenal are one of the establishment clubs, and Ashley Cole is one of their own players that's come through the ranks and has become...
It's almost an impossible move, isn't it?
Yeah, it just never felt possible.
It probably did. You know, you're right. It probably, in hindsight, and maybe it's almost something that needs to be studied, probably changed the way footballers think in terms of sort of club loyalty. Now it's, it's footballers that are so much more in charge, so maybe it did. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Oh, this is going to be interesting, this one, because Tottenham have been heartbroken so many times. Let's go to Roy, the Tottenham fan. Oh, Roy, which one broke your heart?
Good evening, guys. It's not the obvious one, Harry Kane, but Glenn Hoddle. I mean, Glenn Hoddle went off to Monaco, and I don't know if you guys remember the final goal that he scored for Tottenham when he picked the ball up on the halfway line and he danced around Sherwood and he put the...
Oh, he's gone. He's gone.
We lost him.
Yeah.
He was that heartbroken.
Can someone check that Roy's not been taken by aliens? Because that almost sounded like he's been zapped up, didn't it? It almost sounded like he's been zapped. Someone call Roy back, please. Just make sure he's okay. Let's quickly go to Wayne. We'll try and get Roy back again. Let's go to Wayne, the Manchester United fan. You shouldn't be heartbroken. You've taken everyone.
Oh, I know I've been heartbroken, but I was heartbroken in '95. Being a season ticket holder, I'd had an absolute stonker of a weekend. Wife wrote my car off the day before. Anyway, we're playing Palace at home on the Saturday, 3:00 kickoff. And there'd been speculation that Mark Hughes has fell out with Alex Ferguson, Andy Cole's coming, this, that. He wanted to team Cantona up with Andy Cole. Anyway, being a Mark Hughes fan, absolutely fantastic number 10.
Sparky.
Oh, unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting the ground. This is an important announcement today. Mark Hughes is staying at United. Hey. At Stretford End. Unit, everybody. Pies dropped on the floor. Cups went down. Standing ovation. Week later, playing for Chelsea.
That's sickening, isn't it?
I could not believe it. That was as quick as it happened. Honest to God. And then we're trying to find out. Apparently, what had happened was he was trying to team Coley up with Cantona. And when Husey found out, he went in, had a word with the gaffer, and Fergie didn't take any garbage, as you well know. Yeah. He said it once. Apparently, he'd opened his mouth, and that was the end of that. But that was 10-3. Now, whether that was to spur us all on, because we hammered Palace that day, I think we're 3 up at half-time. And it was fantastic. Monday morning, no phones or nothing. My mate, Leeds fan, have you heard? What's that? Husey's gone to Chelsea. I said, they've just announced it at What are you on about? Anyway, come on, it was Piccadilly Radio then. Mark Hughes has gone. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I'd lost my left arm. I was off for a week.
Wayne, Wayne, very, very quickly on this one. We heard. I don't know if you heard a caller just now talk about Andrei Kanchelskis leaving Everton to go Fiorentina. Obviously, Kanchelskis flying down the wing for you guys was incredible. I know Beckham came in and replaced him, but there must have been a bit of a heartache when Kanchelskis left as well, no?
Oh, I'll tell you something else. And all when Kanchelskis went, but he had problems abroad with money and stuff and family, didn't he? And then Fergie got involved, and that's where he went. But another one was Lee Sharp. I actually spoke to Lee Sharp. He was out of his face drunk as a skunk in a pub in Manchester, and he'd had his problems. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, he'd gone. And he'd opened his mouth, like so did Van Nistelrooy. And
be careful. Don't mess around with Fergie. Don't mess around with Fergie.
But I tell you now, when Mark Hughes left, I tell you, I was like a duck out of water. I'm off work. I couldn't believe it. Then Coley came. I thought, we've got something here. We've got something. Then he left Chelsea. He went to Southampton. And I thought, God, what's going on here? And anyway, Fergie left us in the mire anyway in the end, and could do with him now. We're worse than ever now, aren't we? As you all know.
That's a whole nother show. Don't try and sneak another show out of us. Wayne, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Top man. I think we've got Roy back. He's not been taken by aliens. He's back. Roy.
You're right, Roy.
There's a kind of irony there, isn't it? I mean, here today, gone tomorrow.
So you're talking about Glenn Hoddle, Roy? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's a case of here today, gone tomorrow.
We can hear you, Roy. Go on. Glenn Hoddle you was talking about.
Yeah. So Glenn Hoddle, boyhood hero, off to Monaco, final goal, this great goal that he scored against Oxford, his last goal. Picked it up off the halfway line, danced around Sherwood, the Watford, Oxford, whoever the goalie was, and just literally stroked it in the net. And to a man, everybody in the crowd just had tears in their eyes.
It's funny with Spurs because, you know, when you think of that Spurs player, I almost feel like they've tried to find the Glenn Hoddle for the last 30 years.
They're not hard to. They're not easy.
They're not easy to come by. Because a lot of them.
Can I just give you two more really quickly?
You can give us one. You got one. You got one. Go on.
Okay, it's either Stevie P or Big Pat. When Spurs decided to sell Big Pat to Arsenal for 50 grand, and we had Barry Danes. I mean, Big Pat. He's a legend. An absolute legend.
Still more of a Spurs legend than an Arsenal one, though.
Yeah, you're right. More of a Spurs legend than an Arsenal legend. Roy, happy to hear you're safe and not been taken by aliens. Top man. All right, so many calls coming in, by the way. I have to quickly run through these. Let's get Alex, the Villa fan, in. Alex, who broke your heart?
Hi, lads. Good show, by the way. I love it. Fabian Delph, surprisingly. Not Jack Grealish.
Interesting.
But Fabian Delph, yeah. I can remember being at the FA Cup.
Man City, wasn't it? Did he go Man City?
Yeah, he left to Man City. He wasn't in the team for the FA Cup game, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone was talking behind his back. You know, everyone fuming. Half time, they put a big TV, like on the TV, video of him announcing that he's just signed a new 3-year contract or something like that. And then
clubs
like the Man U caller before, beers were in the air and everything, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, he's in talks with Man City. I mean, you can't blame him, can you? But it was a tough one to take.
What about, like, if you go back a few more years, like the ones like Ben Teke and Dwight York?
I mean, we were in it's a difficult one. Ben Teke didn't bother me too much because I wasn't attached to Ben Teke like I was with. But he was quite open, and he hadn't announced that he was signing a new contract, and you know, it was just the fact that he signed a new contract. He was the engine as well at the time, like he was carrying us in games, and but yeah, like I said, you can't blame him, can you, with what he achieved at Man City?
No, he done all right, didn't he? It's weird how he just kind of faded out of his career, just faded at the end, didn't it?
I got to be honest, that wasn't a name I expected to hear in this segment.
I expected to hear so many others.
But it goes to show, doesn't it, how you can get attached to a player as a supporter, and even if nobody else can kind of see that value, that connection does exist.
Yeah, you do. All right, let's go to Alan, the Sunderland fan. This is a really good show, this one, isn't it? Getting all these calls in. Alan, Sunderland fan, which one broke your heart, Alan?
Well, I'll give you the backstory. So, we signed him for 200,000 as a right back. He ended up getting us promoted, won the European Golden Shoe, threw his toys out the pram. Then
can I guess who it is?
Yeah.
Is it Kevin Phillips?
It is, yeah.
There you go.
It's still
What a player.
series name. 3 million to Southampton all after all that. It's just like he won the European Golden Boot with Sunderland. And then, like, in his last season, he barely even kicked the ball in anger, and then he was just gone. And then, to make it worse, we nearly had the chance to get him back when Roy Keane was manager, and he didn't fancy it.
It's a shame, innit? You think of that Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips partnership.
Yeah,
Like that is the archetypal sort of big man, small man partnership.
That is Sunderland. When I think of Sunderland,
I think of that.
That's what I think of.
Yeah, I think
Peter
of that as
Reid
well.
as the manager.
Oh,
and those
mate.
two.
Yeah, honestly, that is a painful one as well. How do you lot think, very quickly, Alan, how do you think you're going to do in the Prem?
I think it all depends on the window, to be honest. I mean, if it was at the minute, we'll probably just break the least amount of points. But it just all depends. We've got this new sporting director in from Roma, and there's a few fancy names kicking about. So I think it will have to be by the end of the transfer deadline. But there's a lot of work needs to be done. I mean, to be fair, we got up through the playoffs, but we tailed off really, really badly from like February onwards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've lost the last 6 games, and we're brilliant in the playoffs, but we'll just scrape past Coventry, to be fair. So, I think with that,
it almost might be a bit too soon, innit, this jump to the Prem. But look, you got to be in it to win it, so you never know.
Yeah, but it's better than being in League One. I mean, we were in League One for like 4 years, and then win the Championship. We had a good season. Then we had a really bad one when we appointed Michael Beale. So it's a little bit in dreamland. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like overly shocked that we went up, because I mean we were like 4th in the league from like January onwards, so there was always a chance that we would go up. But yeah, I'm happy.
All right, Alan, top man, great call. All right, let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more very quickly. Let's go to Daniel, the Portsmouth fan. Portsmouth, there's a few heartbreaks there, isn't it? Just because of the way in which the club collapsed for a couple of years, where they had to sell a lot of players. Go on, Daniel, which one?
Yes, we had Andres D'Alessandro, who was
D'Alessandro, I remember him. Wow,
what a player! He was. We only had him for like half a season, but the fans still talk about him today, even with the good group of players that came next. I mean, he was the best I've ever seen down there. So I remember Harry Redknapp saying, like, what little Argentine playmaker, just unbelievable.
It must have been weird that kind of period for Portsmouth where, I mean, everyone went there. I mean, so many. Suleiman Tari was in the midfield, and then he went on to Inter Milan. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, this was sort of 2000. So it was a couple of years before all of those names, because we were fighting relegation as sort of per usual. But he came in and you remember he scored a goal against Charlton, which was just a worldie, and he completely changed the team. So he was only for half a season, a brilliant player.
Yeah, fantastic, great.
Do you want to hear something really interesting about him? D'Alessandro is 44 years old now.
Don't say he's still playing.
He made one appearance 3 years ago for Internacional, so he was playing at 41.
Wow. He loves his football, innit? Loves his football.
Loves it.
Daniel, great stuff. All right, let's one more quickly. Jake, we could literally do this all the way until 10, but we can't. Jake, the Celtic fan. Oh, if it's not Henrik Larsson, we're going to drop him. If it's not Henrik Larsson, Jake, we're dropping you.
It's got to be Henrik Larsson.
It's got to be Henrik Larsson, hasn't it?
I was heartbroken for them.
I was heartbroken for your club, I tell you.
Yeah, just sensational. 242 goals, 57 assists. I mean, 35 goals in 38 game season. I mean, what a player. Still get emotional thinking about it now.
Yeah, no, he was just sensational, wasn't he? I mean, it was so good for Barcelona, so good for United as well. Like, just so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the year that Barcelona beat Arsenal. Sorry to rub it in, but he changed the game. 2 assists in the game, changed the game.
Yeah, there's been nothing like him, has there? I mean, obviously, look, he's a one-off, but even in terms of anything compared to that, like no comparisons whatsoever up there since then.
No, not really. I just mean he came back a few years ago, and like there's just the emotion at one of those ceremonies and singing his songs, and I mean he's part of the fabric of the club now. He just means so much to us.
If you can take us back to when you found out that he was going to leave, I mean, because at the time, remember there was a lot of talk as well. Do you remember this? Where there's a lot of talk about Rangers and Celtic coming down. So it's not the way it's viewed now. At the time, Rangers and Celtic were massive, massive clubs. Still are, don't get me wrong, but everyone thought they could compete. Sorry, but everyone thought they could compete with the Premier League clubs if they were in the Premier League. So you were huge. And then he decides to leave. What were the feelings?
Oh, it was just last game. I think it was Dundee United, and just the emotion in the ground and just around. And I remember my dad's a massive Celtic supporter. My dad, grown man crying.
Yeah.
It's what football does to us.
This is what it does to us, and everyone looks at us like we're crazy. Jake, you still are a big club, Jake. I'm joking. I appreciate the call, my man. Thank you very, very much. All right, you listen to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18 plus, begambleaware.org. Transfer Insiders, Adi Oladipo, Harry Symeou, just coming up to 10 to 9. Remember, with you until 10 o'clock. We love this nostalgia chat about players that have left your club, that have broken your heart. That, we're going to continue it for 10 more minutes. So get your phone calls coming in, 03717 223344. Before we go to the phone lines, let's read out a couple of texts that have come in as well.
Steve from Ashford in Kent says when David Rocastle left from Arsenal to go to Leeds United.
Ooh, I almost forget about that.
People forget about that very easily. Ryan says not over Trent yet. Surprise, surprise.
People now hate watching Trent.
Yeah,
let him be rubbish at Real Madrid. Yeah, it's got that now. Yeah.
Patrick says, all right, lads. Andy Gray from Villa to Wolves was hard to take. He said he was a legend. We've got Torres going to Chelsea has been mentioned. Ian Wright going from Crystal Palace to Arsenal has been mentioned as well. And Kieran, who's a Spurs fan, he says when he first got into football, it was the season that Spurs won the League Cup, and Dimitar Berbatov was his favourite player. When he went to Manchester United, that broke his heart.
That was the United of old, wasn't it? Where they could literally pick your best player and you're gone.
Yeah, best player in the Premier League.
Is going United.
Playing elsewhere, they'll hoover him up.
Now, can barely get Burma over the line. It's crazy. All right, let's go to a Man United fan, Simon. Simon, which one hurt you the most?
Beckham going to Madrid.
Ooh,
Absolutely gutted.
Yeah, because he was...
On the flip side...
Go on.
On the flip side, Van Persie coming to United and winning it.
Wait, one second. We're not doing the best yet. We're doing the worst.
He wanted to get that in.
He wanted to get that in. He wanted to get it. But the Beckham one was interesting, wasn't it? Because not that it came from nowhere, but you kind of heard murmurings. Again, it's different to social media now, where we'd probably know a year out. But then it kind of just steamrolled into Beckham's gone. He's leaving.
Yeah, gutted. Still gutted, but he's a great player.
He was a great player. In terms of incomings, then Van Persie, that must have been one of the best ones ever.
I think Van Persie, just the fact he came, turned it around, scored a hat-trick against Villa to win it, and we got a guard of honour when we played Arsenal. I just absolutely love that.
Forget about the guard of honour.
That hurt.
All right, yeah, we can go now. All right, he's still laughing. All right, Simon, appreciate the call. All right, let's go to Connor, another United fan. I feel like United fans haven't had the heartbreaking moments because they've stolen everyone's players. But go on, Connor, which one broke your heart?
Hi, my name is Ola, not Connor.
Oh, Ola. Okay, sorry, apologies, Ola. Go on.
Yeah, great shows as always, guys. For me, Carlos Tevez, I remember the trio, Ronaldo, Rooney, and Carlos Tevez. So Carlos Tevez is still out to tomorrow.
And I guess with the Tevez one, it's not just because he left, it's because of where he went. He went to City. Remember that big poster, Welcome to Manchester? Oh,
I know.
How dare they do that?
I remember one of the last games he played for us, a couple of games he played for us, the fans were singing, sign him, sign him, sign him,
yes, sign him, Fergie, sign him, Fergie, and Fergie didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
He was a fantastic player. Ola, thank you very much for that one.
All right, cheers.
Cheers, my man. Fantastic player, was he?
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
That four up front, probably the best four the Premier League's ever seen. That Ronaldo, Berbatov, Rooney, Tevez. Yeah, that's almost a cheat code.
Manchester United were just stacked with quality in those days, weren't they? And you're right that they were able to just, cherry pick the best players. Yeah. There was a pool, there was an allure. People still say that Man United have a pool. I mean, as you say, they're struggling to get Mbeumo over the line at the minute.
It's done. That pool's done. Yeah, that pool's done, gone. Unfortunately. All right, let's go to Tony, the Hibs fan. This is going to be interesting because this might be one that we're not too familiar with. But go on, Tony. What's the biggest one that hurt you? Not bad at all, man.
Yeah, mate, great show, by the way. It's the first time I've phoned up for you guys.
Top man.
So, fantastic. John McGinn.
Yeah, John McGinn, of course. Yeah.
And there's an actual other one, Ulysses De La Cruz, that played for Hibs and went to Aston Villa as well. But the John McGinn one, I mean, Hibs at the time paid massive money for him for a club our size. It's £800,000, I think we paid.
Mm.
And I think eventually we got about 2.7 million from Aston Villa, I think, with add-ons. But the funniest thing was that Celtic were trying to come in for him, and they had bid rejected. Nobody wanted him to go to Celtic, but he's a Celtic fan.
Mm.
But for the good of Hibs, he went to Aston Villa. And the day that he came back playing for Aston Villa, when we were in the Conference League, and he came back to Easter Road, what a reception he got.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
That's when you know you're still loved. Not many players can do that, can go when the fans don't want them to go and return and get a reception.
But I love that, though, because obviously, with all due respect to Hibs, they're not the size of Aston Villa. So there's almost...
I totally agree. And, when he first signed, he was quite small. He hadn't bulked out. We got him from St Mirren. And the St Mirren fans were saying he's going to be a future Scotland captain. He's going to be a Champions League great player. And you seen it right away. The way he read the game, the way he controlled, and he'll forever be in my heart because we won the Scottish Cup for him in the team.
Mm.
And that, 117 years or something since we had won the Scottish Cup, and John McGinn was part of that. So anybody that's been part of that will always hold a special
always get the love, wouldn't they? Would always get the love.
Yeah, I love that.
Great call, Tony. Great call.
Because, football fans at times, we can be really tribal and at times immature, and there can be a lack of respect. And sometimes it's nice to hear stories like that because it means that even though you acknowledge that move had to happen, you kind of, you're over it and you're okay.
Yeah, you
with it,
begrudgingly let him go. It's like, he's got to go because ultimately, as you say, Villa are a bigger club. Let him go and show how good he can be. And look, he's been fantastic for Villa as well. All right, 2 more here. Let's go to Dave, the West Ham fan. Dave. Oh, this could be anyone. This could be. There's so many for West Ham that are heartbroken. Go on, Dave.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you, Dave.
Hello. Yeah, I think my heartbreak was Frank Lampard.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Lampard.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's weird. But is it because of the player he became? Because at the time, I mean, when you sold him to Chelsea, I remember that famous sit-down, Harry Redknapp and a fan sort of saying he wasn't that good. Is it the player he became, or at the time, did you know that he was going to go on to be something as good as he was at Chelsea?
I knew he was going to go on to be a great player, perhaps not to the level he achieved in the end. I don't think anyone could have really foreseen that, apart from Harry, apparently. But it's the connection he had to West Ham.
Yeah, it is a shame. Obviously, you think of his dad, as well. Yeah.
His dad, his uncle, he was West Ham through and through.
Yeah,
he wasn't in the end though because he went to Chelsea
and he became Chelsea through and through, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's more associated with Chelsea now when you think of it.
Sure,
He's Chelsea, isn't he?
There's a message in from Rich in Worthing, who highlights the Lampard to Man City move. You know, from Chelsea, and I know it wasn't a direct move necessarily, but I think he says that was a difficult one.
It's always weird when you see players in shirts that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like when you look back, and it's like I saw that one the other day. I think it was Robert Pires in an Aston Villa shirt.
Yep.
Which I thought was just...
Sometimes you forget about some of these moves, though. Like Gary's texting. He says, "Hi, guys. Has anyone mentioned Peter Schmeichel moving from Villa to Manchester City?" It's very easy to forget that Peter Schmeichel played for Man City because of his association with United.
Very easy to forget he played for Aston Villa. All right, let's get one more in. John, the Newcastle fan. Go on, John, very quickly. Which one broke your heart?
Sorry, gents. So for me, it was probably when Andy Carroll moved to Liverpool back in 2011.
Yes.
So I was probably... I was probably like 13, 14 at the time. So you sort of...
That's when it hurts the most. That's when it hurts the most, I'm telling you.
Yeah, so you're like starting to love football, but then you're starting to like invest in the actual players more. And the season before, obviously, we just got promoted. Like him and like the partnership between him and Nolan was like, at the time, was just outstanding. And I think me being 14 years old, I think we rejected 2 bids, and the third one came in. It was on transfer. It was the last day of the January window, and even to this day, I can remember where I was stood when I found out. I remember my dad called me, and I was stood outside of Asda because I didn't get service inside, and I was like almost in tears, you know. But even, you know, you understand why he moves, and I'm just pleased it didn't work for him at the end of the day. But yeah,
I still find it crazy, John, that I honestly thought Suarez and Carroll would be the best partnership we've ever seen in the league. I remember thinking this is just going to be... I actually thought Carroll would be England's number 9 for 10 years. How it didn't work for Andy Carroll, I do not know.
Carroll got found out pretty quickly after.
Yeah, he did. He's playing in the French 4th division, isn't he?
Something like that. Or he was. I don't know if he was.
I think he still is. I think he either kept them up on the last day penalty or something, or he's doing something. We'll find it out. But John, appreciate the call. Appreciate everyone for the calls. That's been very, very fun, that is. Looking back on players that broke your heart when they moved clubs. All right, stick with us. Loads more coming on Transfer Insiders.
Sir Gareth Southgate admits he was more emotional than he thought he would be while receiving his knighthood for services to football. He says being given the award from the Prince of Wales, patron of the FA, was particularly special.
You can see when he's watching England, when he's watching Aston Villa, that he's a genuine football fan, and he was deeply passionate about the team doing well and how he might help as president of the FA, and was I getting the right support when I needed it. So it was an immense backing to have.
Now, how's our very own Danny Murphy finding the Club World Cup?
I haven't watched any. Watching games with half-empty stadiums is tedious anyway. It's boiling hot. The tempo's not great, apart from the South American teams who are A, used to playing in it, and B, in the middle of their season. So that in itself makes it somewhat ridiculous. You've got teams playing who are in the middle of the season. You've got groups of players from Europe who are having a bit of a jolly up because they've got to be there, don't really want to be there.
Elsewhere, Crystal Palace's place in Europe may have been boosted by Lyon's relegation from the French top flight over finance issues. The club is owned by now former Palace shareholder John Textor. Lyon are appealing, and Simon Jordan's questioned the credibility of the sanction.
What we normally see when a club's in absolute disarray is people don't get paid. I'm not hearing that about Lyon. I'm not hearing the players are not being paid and all this sort of stuff. So clearly they're meeting some sort of obligations, because we see it in this country. We see Sheffield Wednesday not paying their wages. We see Reading. We see other people with That's leagues. a fair point. And all of a sudden they get sanctioned because they're not able to meet their obligations. And that gives you... These guys have got debt. And they seem to be able to pay their way.
And Lions and Scotland front row Pierre Schoeman says the tour to Australia is about more than just the players.
I have to feel the responsibility of, I think, what's it, like 50,000 and more fans coming to Australia. So you have a massive obligation and responsibility. It's not focusing on what's ahead, it's about now. We are the selected guys, management, players in this team, the squad now, to make it happen. So you have to take that responsibility. And if you're not putting together, there's no space for dead weight on this team. Everyone has to push in the same.
Good evening, Transfer Insiders. Adi Oladipo alongside Harry Symeou. Remember, with you until 10 o'clock. Just gone at 9 o'clock. It is now time to look at the latest football action with Ladbrokes. And we're going to do a bit of a European roundup. Loads going on, not just in the Premier League, but loads going on in Europe as well. And who better than Andy Brassel, who has got, and we're very intrigued by this, Andy, the David Beckham AC Milan top in the background. We're like, of all the jerseys that Brassel has, of all the jerseys that he's collected, and like the Romanian second division, why Beckham 32 AC Milan?
Oh, come on. It's a great time. The time when he went to the Galaxy, came back for a little taste of Serie A to keep himself in check, and thought, I can't leave European football behind. I love that.
Nah, it's good. It's a good story, isn't it? Beckham, AC Milan. Think of the teams that Beckham's played for.
Unreal.
It's actually incredible, isn't it? It is. Let's have a conversation about Lyon, which none of us want to have, right? Lyon, as it stands right now, look like they're going to get relegated to the division below, hundreds of millions of pounds in debt. And strange, you look at Lyon and you think, one second, this is a team that I think should have gone on and won the Europa League. I thought we're better than Manchester United over two legs, look fantastic. So many good young players, so many assets. How they put themselves in this position and how do they get out of it, I guess, is the better question, Andy.
I guess there's two words for both of those answers, both those questions, John Textor and John Textor, really. Yeah. Because the sort of numbers that Lyon are able to do in terms of producing players, in terms of developing players, selling players, the size of the ground they have, all that other stuff, that they shouldn't be in anywhere near this situation. Now, as you might be aware, the relegation has been a decision handed down by the DNCG, which is a very strict French financial control board. Now, everyone's on a bit of a tightrope this year because all the clubs have been instructed in the TV money income column to put zero because they don't have a TV deal at the moment, and they're looking to build their own channel, and like Canal Plus or DAZN or someone will end up doing the production for that. But you know, that means there's presumably a little bit more leniency than normal. Now, the thing is with John Textor, he has come in and said, oh, well, we've got this multi-club model. It's a little bit different. And he's made no effort ever since he's taken over in 2022 to understand what the DNCG requires from him. There are lines that need to be towed, and he's given them a million excuses about, well, the money when I sell my bit of Crystal Palace will come in soon. We're going to float on the stock exchange in Wall Street. And he actually sat there in November when the provisional decision to relegate them was given across and said, well, these people who are making these decisions, they don't understand Wall Street. They don't understand the multi-club model. And you're sitting there thinking, exactly, Harry. I mean, when you talk about relating to people who are going to make serious decisions about your club, he also turned up after an all-night flight from Los Angeles directly to the hearing in Paris yesterday, wearing his Botafogo cap, told everyone everything would be fine, and as soon as he left, and again told everyone everything would be fine, like an hour before the relegation decision was handed down, he was looking for a hotel because apparently he couldn't get a direct flight to Philadelphia from Paris at that time of night to go back to the Club World Cup. So it's so lackadaisical. He's done press conferences where he has got all the figures wrong. You know, he clearly can't add up, and he's clearly got no one in the room who he allows to help him as well. So they've dug themselves a really needless hole, and I would feel like quite optimistic about them getting out of it on appeal. You look at Monaco, for example, who were relegated for similar reasons in 2003. That was reversed and they went on to reach the Champions League final and nearly win the league. So it can happen. But the problem is the person that they need to get them out of that is John Textor. That's the problem.
Well, that means they're staying in it, because I don't know if he's capable of getting them out of it. Sticking with French football, Ibrahima Konate. Obviously, look, there seems to be an issue brewing with Liverpool. He hasn't got long left on his contract. He wants, for what we know, a bit more money. PSG seem to be sort of lurking, as they would be, right? He's a fantastic defender, French, so that connection was always going to be there with PSG. What is going on with the Konate situation? Is there light at the end of the tunnel for Liverpool, or is there more in it with this Mark Gahey situation now?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an issue really with Konate, and really the problem is he'll be going in there thinking, we've just won the league and I deserve my raise. Whereas really, if you look at his fitness record and his availability record, you know what they say, the best ability is availability over the last couple of years. And that goes back to his time at Leipzig as well. Would you be willing to bet the farm on this guy? I think there has to be a bit of give and take there. And I think, Liverpool have been criticised for, maybe keeping slightly tighter reins on the books than other big clubs in Europe or the Premier League before. I think they're completely within their rights to do that this time. From a PSG perspective, there is the feeling that Marquinhos will probably move on at the end of next season. So they are looking for a senior defender to come in and have a bit of handover and maybe take his place from starting this season and then fully from next season, from 26-27. Obviously, they've wanted to get younger. They've wanted to get more French in the last while, and that's really, really worked for them in terms of the Champions League as well. So I definitely think it's one to keep an eye on. I wouldn't have thought it was tied to Mark Gahey, but Paris Saint-Germain are a real threat, that's for sure.
Andy, just on Jadon Sancho, another Premier League-based player who's been linked with a move to Europe. We've heard Juventus, we've heard Fenerbahce. I must have read about 5 or 6 different clubs over the course of the last 24, 48 hours. What's the latest on him, and who do you think's showing the most interest on the continent?
Well, Harry, Fenerbahce are the favourites at the moment, and that's because they are showing Jadon Sancho the money and then some. I think it's one of those ones, occasionally people have a job, maybe builders, that they don't really want to take on, so they hit an unrealistically high price, and then they might end up getting offered that unrealistically high price. I wonder if that's what's happened with Jadon Sancho and Fenerbahce. Clearly he wanted to stay in the Premier League. He, via his agents, gave them a request for 12 million euros a year after tax. And they just said, yeah.
Wow.
And it's that simple. So even though Juventus are interested, even though Juventus are still talking to Manchester United, I find it quite hard to imagine Juventus getting to that level, especially as they've taken big efforts to cut their wage bill over the last little while. Now, this is all great news for Manchester United. Now, of course, Fenerbahce might be playing, well, I wouldn't say hardball, firm ball, perhaps, in that they're going, okay, well, we're going to offer a little bit more than the fee that United want, which we believe is around £18 million. But ultimately, surely United are going to blink. If they've got an opportunity to permanently get him off the books, they're going to take it.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a shame how his career has just spiralled down. Hopefully.
It is.
It's a real big shame. Considering, remember the efforts United sort of put in to try and get him 3-4 seasons ago? They couldn't get him and they thought they failed. Then they got him and you almost thought he was a shoo-in for England for the next decade. And here we are now. Let's talk about a talent that is doing very well, and that's Nico Williams, heavily linked with Barcelona. It seems as though that's the move he wants to make. Barcelona would love him to link up, I guess, with Lamine Yamal. So it looks like everything's going in the right direction. Can they get him?
I mean, it seems to me that this is the left winger transfer window, isn't it? 75% of the players on the market are left wingers. It's so true, though, isn't it? Yeah. We won't have time for Rafael Leao. We'll have to leave that till next time, I suppose. But like with Nico Williams, Barcelona badly wanted him last summer, as we know. They weren't able to get him. Well, they realised they weren't going to be able to get Olmo and Nico Williams in the same transfer window. And also, his older brother, Iñaki, who we know gives him a lot of good advice, said, well, what if they can't register you? And that's exactly what happened to Dani Olmo, of course, twice during the season. So big brother gives good advice, it turns out. Now, Barcelona, from I guess their addition of confidence by John Textor, think they're fine. They think that because they've signed this new deal with Nike for kit, that they're absolutely covered. Again, they've upset La Liga and La Liga's financial board so many times that if there's any little doubts, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. Remember that they were told they couldn't play Dani Olmo going back to January, and they just went to and found another court, which you're really not allowed to do. It's really not the done thing in football. You're meant to stay within football jurisdiction, and just played him anyway. So if there's any semblance of doubt, they won't get the benefit of that from La Liga. Now, with this in mind, Max Eberl, the sporting director of Bayern Munich, who really wants Iñaki Williams as well, they've had words about Rafael Leao, but there's no real consensus within the Bayern boardroom about him. He's flown back from the Club World Cup and he's in Europe because he feels he needs to have face-to-face meetings, and he wants to speak to Nico Williams' people and say, look, if Barcelona aren't there for you, we'll be there for you. But it's interesting, isn't it? Bayern, you think of no one saying no to them, really, especially no one German saying no to them. Well, Florian Wirtz did this summer, despite them asking him on a number of occasions. And now they're in this weird situation where they're kind of second choice for a lot of players, and they're having to wait there and go, yeah, if you don't get what you want, well, come to us.
What a second choice, right? Imagine having Bayern Munich waiting on the phone.
Second choice, yeah.
Hold a second Bayern, 2 seconds. Let's have a quick word of Barca and Real Madrid first. Andy, as always, my man, appreciate you coming on. Thank you very, very much. All that was there thanks to Ladbrokes. 18 plus at begambleaware.org.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
All right, listen to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18 plus begambleaware.org. When we come back, we're going to pivot to the EFL. Sam Parkin's going to join us. Good evening, Transfer Insiders. Adi Oladipo, Harry Symeou. The reunion of the century is just around the corner. I'm going to give you a chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester, July 19th. Yes, you heard that right. Oasis Live 25. It's sold out, but talkSPORT can get you in. But that's not all. Alongside the tickets, we're going to put you up for a night in a hotel and put $5,000 in your back pocket, completely tax-free. So that's cash. $5,000 cash. Listen up right now for everything you need to know and how to enter.
Alright, kid. You have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay, and $5,000 spending money, all you got to do is text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Sorted. Right, here's all the legal stuff. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You've got to have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com.
There you go. Great price. Are you Oasis fan? You into it?
Not really. When you said reunion of the century, I thought you meant me and you.
I thought it was that as well.
And then
I had to keep reading. I was like, 1 second, they're telling me to read this? It didn't make any sense.
And then it dawned on me that you weren't talking about me and you, and it upset me a bit.
Yeah. But Oasis fans, get in touch. It's a great prize. All right, 6 weeks until the season starts in the EFL. Fixtures are out tomorrow. Borough have a new manager who's going to take charge of QPR. Bell wants to buy Cardiff. So basically, look, loads and loads of stories. So let's get an update as to what's going on in the EFL with our main man, Sam Parkin. Sam, great to have you on. We're loving the poster in the background, Sam. I'm loving that. That's the best one yet, isn't it? We've seen a lot of pictures and frames. That's the best one. Bobby Moore and Pele.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good photo. I've been made to take down all my canvases of the Goodfellas and Pulp Fiction and stuff
all
like
the
that.
Gangster stuff, Since
I settled down, but the Bobby Moore and Pele remains.
Ain't going nowhere. No matter what she says, it ain't going nowhere, that kind of stuff.
In the office, no problem.
Indeed. All right, let's start with Borough. Obviously, I guess a surprise to some that Michael Carrick got sacked. I thought he did an okay job, especially considering that he pretty much lost his best player every single season. But Rob Edwards comes in. Obviously, we know him for his time and what he did at Luton. He comes in, gets an opportunity as well. Do you think they're going to go for it here, Borough? Because I think there'll be some people listening of an age that don't even remember Borough too much as a Premier League club, but I do. I do remember Borough. I remember the times under Janino and Ravanelli and all, Emerson. Do you think they're going to go for it and try and really go for a proper promotional push this time?
It's difficult to know, really, when you think of the big hitters that are coming down. I think it's been a spell where they surprised. I think the initial season under Carrick, they probably punched above their weight. He had that, brilliant knack of kind of rolling the dice. If you remember, there was Akpom playing as a number 10 in tandem with Archer, who's a brilliant loanee at the level. Everything he touched in that first year kind of turned to gold. And then the second season was kind of a rebuild, consolidation. And then naturally last year, everyone's rubbing their hands together, Borough fans, right, this is it, we've got to get up this year. And obviously they nearly forced themselves into the playoffs. But I think you're right, lost players at vital moments. Latte Lath was obviously one of the best goal scorers in the division. Ben Doak was lighting it up as well for Carrick on loan from Liverpool. He got injured quite early. and they never really recovered. So I don't know. I don't know what the backing's going to be. I see a lot of similarities between Rob Edwards and Michael Carrick, actually, and that's despite, you know, you look at it on the face of it, and if you followed Rob Edwards across the last 2 years, you've seen him play quite industrious, robust football at Luton. I'm not sure that's him. You know, when you peel it back, he came through in terms of his coaching, England, Wolves, his Forest Green team, played lovely football. He inherited a really successful Luton side who played away, really effective, and he ran with it. I think we could see something akin with a few little changes to what we saw with Michael Carrick. They'll play good football, I think, Rob Edwards, and the reason I'm kind of quite strong on this is I know one of his assistants that he's taken with him, Adi Viabash, was a teammate of mine, and I've banged this drum a lot. He did sterling work with Mark Robbins at Coventry. Good football side, very forward-thinking coach. They're not going to boom it. They're going to play good football. I think there was a little bit of a frustration that Michael Carrick's side were a little bit pedestrian, a bit side to side. He was a wonderful footballer at keeping the ball, granted, but I think they wanted a bit more oomph. And I think that's going to be the little changes that they have to make. You know what I mean? It's not going to be night and day. I just think they probably have to be a little bit more front foot, a little bit more penetrative, and that'll strike the right chord with the Middlesbrough fans, I'm sure.
Sam, there's been managerial change at Queen's Park Rangers. I've got to say I was disappointed to see Marty Cifuentes go, but it sounds like there was a fair bit going on behind the scenes. They've got a new man in place, Julian Stefan. What do you know about him, and how do you think he'll do?
Well, yeah, echo your sentiment there, because you know my allegiance, Harry, as a kid, and my family, you know, big QPR family I come from, and my brother in particular lives in close proximity to the ground. Really excited and been so happy with Marty Cifuentes, who performed miracles really across his 2 seasons. So yeah, really strange, disappointing. Obviously there's a bit of a clash, I think, with Christian Nuri, who's I think he's 25, 26, who's in charge of kind of the football operations there.
That's
so
crazy,
quite a unique.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think his background's data. He's done some sterling work in the game across the last 5 years, but obviously been handed the keys a little bit, and there's been a bit of a falling out there. But I'm infused, I think, when you see this chap's CV, Julian Stefan. I think he's had the highest finish ever for Rennes and Strasbourg likewise previously. He's won a cup in France, and I just noted, having a little look last 24, 48 hours, his old man is a very, very well regarded coach, experienced Guy Stefan, who's been number 2 to Deschamps for a number of years at the national team in France. So it's obviously in his blood.
He's from good stock.
From good stock. And as it went with Marty Cifuentes, I think everyone of a QPR persuasion's got to go in with an open mind. And I mean, I'm jumping ahead here, but Kwame Poku, the lad at Peterborough, has been strongly linked. He's got a bit of a dilemma because there's 3 or 4 clubs in for him, QPR being one. If they're to get that one over the line, that's really exciting. I mean, that's akin to, it made me think of Trevor Sinclair coming to QPR from Blackpool those years ago, you know, plucking someone from the lower leagues and polishing them. That's what QPR used to be about, and he will be an amazing signing because he's a terrific talent.
Let's talk about the promotion race. Just because I think it's the toughest league in the world, the Championship. You've got a couple of big teams coming up from League One. Wrexham might surprise everyone again. Birmingham have got big backers. You've got teams coming down from the Premier League, always expect to go back up. And you've got teams that have been in the Premier League that are stuck in there. What's your pick for sort of teams that, you know, to watch out for, and maybe ones that could surprise a few?
Yeah, that's difficult. I think you're always drawn to the 3 that come down. I think, you know, Ipswich have got that continuity, haven't they, in regard to the manager, if he sticks around. A lot of the players that did the damage across the 2 promotion seasons, plus the players they've accumulated for the Premier League. So the squad looks really good. I suppose Leicester and, you know, Southampton, a little bit of an unknown what the squad's going to look like. We have this every year, and I think that's been the case. Southampton, the last time they were in this predicament, again, you don't know what the squad's going to look like. Will Steele looks like an incredibly exciting manager, so we'll wait and see on that one. Leicester likewise, we don't know how they're going to look. It's what they want, I suppose, from their next appointment. Do they want it to be possession heavy like it's been previously under Maresca, or are they going to go for something slightly different? I think, obviously, Coventry, given the second half to the season, have to be fancies. And I suppose it won't surprise anyone, but you didn't mention them, Birmingham. Would I be astonished if they went bang bang? No, I wouldn't. I thought they were incredibly easy on the eye last year. They've got the right people in the right roles. In terms of the manager, Chris Davies, I think he's brilliant. Love watching his team last year. He's obviously going to be backed. So I'd go out and say top half for them, but it could be better. I think it'd be more, I wouldn't say a struggle for Wrexham, but I think they'll have a season of consolidation without challenging. Birmingham could very well challenge. Outside of them, I suppose you've got the next little pack with kind of Bristol City, Middlesbrough, Norwich, West Brom. A lot of changes at the helm. We've already spoken about Middlesbrough, new guys in at Norwich and West Brom and Bristol City. So not so sure. Quite fancy Derby to go better. Obviously survived by the skin of their teeth last year, but I think John Hughes is a good manager, mate of mine, so I've got to get that in. And yeah, I don't think he's underrated, but I think if he gets the right pieces in the jigsaw at Derby, and it sounds like it's quite exciting, the transfer business they're doing, I'd expect them to have a better season next year and not be flirting with a dreaded drop.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Sam, appreciate as always coming on, my man. Thank you very much. Sam Parker.
Pleasure, lads. Speak to you soon.
The EFL fantastically well. All right, you're listening to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org. Coming up, we're going to recap the biggest transfer stories of the day. This is Transfer Insiders, myself, Oladipo and Harry Symeou. We're going to discuss the latest on Arsenal's pursuit of Christian Norgard from Brentford, the latest on Aston Villa with PSR potentially affecting their summer plans, and does Anthony Elanga improve at Newcastle? And we're going to have the latest from Europe as well. This is the Transfer Insiders. All right, firstly, it looks like Arsenal are moving quickly in the market with Brentford's Christian Norgard on the verge of a move. Ollie Klink gave us the latest.
Let's start with that Christian Norgard story because it's developed quickly throughout the day. We understand that Arsenal have now agreed a fee with Brentford for their captain Christian Norgard. The fee will be £10 million with £5 million in add-ons. Spurs were also interested in him. It would have been him linking up, of course, with his former manager, Thomas Frank, but he is heading to the Emirates. He's seen as a replacement for Thomas Partey, with Partey set to leave the Emirates. He's 31. He is an established Premier League player. He can slot in at number 6, and Jorginho has also left too. So it feels like a good addition to their squad. They'll also have Zubimendi, who's coming in, Rice and Marino in those kinds of positions. But for me, it feels like an Arteta kind of signing. We know he likes Premier League experience, especially when it is a player coming in that is potentially going to be starting on the bench.
Okay. One thing to take from that really is the fee, which no one's really discussing, because I don't want to ever make it sound like 15 million is not a lot of money. But in the football world, you're signing a captain, a Premier League proven player, an international, and it's 10 million plus add-ons to make 15. It's almost a case of it's worth a risk.
Yeah, I think the fee is actually surprisingly low. I thought that Brentford would dig their heels in. I really did. I thought that given his status at the club, the fact he's the captain, etc., I thought that they would really try and squeeze as much out of Arsenal as possible. Maybe it was made clear to them quite early on in the negotiations that wasn't going to happen, that Arsenal weren't going to go much further, and maybe the players pushing for it. I mean, you'd assume that Christian Norgard wants to join Arsenal Football Club. I guess for me, look, this is one of those signings where, I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little bit underwhelmed by the idea of it at the moment, because I don't see how immediately it improves Arsenal, particularly with Thomas Partey leaving. But I guess it's one of those that...
it's not an upgrade on Partey, is it?
No,
I mean, let's be honest, it's a massive downgrade on Partey, especially the Partey of last season.
Yeah, and people keep saying it's not a replacement for Partey, it's a replacement for Jorginho, and that Zubimendi's the replacement for Partey, which I get. But Partey, technically, today is still an Arsenal player, right? So if you are in discussions with Thomas Partey and you want to keep him on, that suggests that was your intention. And now it looks like he's leaving and Arsenal haven't managed to get the guy that they want to stay, and instead they've had to pivot to this. Now, okay, it's all well and good, but it's a signing that maintains a level at best, rather than improving Arsenal. And I do think the environment at Arsenal, or around Arsenal, I should say, not at Arsenal, but around them at the moment, is playing a big part in the perception of this deal. If Arsenal had gone out by now and got a striker and got a top wingering and then brought in Christian Norgard, people wouldn't be talking about it like this.
Agreed, wouldn't matter. Is there a concern when you look at that midfield? So, I mean, at the moment, Zubimendi, right? Zubimendi, Declan Rice, Odegaard, I know a 10, but Odegaard midfielder, and Norgard. Where's the pace in that midfield? I mean, there's guile, there's experience. Declan Rice has certainly got pace when he gets up to speed. But where is that electric sort of 3-4 yard burst?
There isn't. It's not there. And there's a few things I think that are missing from this Arsenal midfield. I criticised the midfield at times when Rice was playing as the 6, and I said that I don't think this midfield is capable of moving the ball through the lines quick enough. Declan Rice is a ball carrier for me.
Yeah.
And if you're playing as a 6, you can't be a ball carrier because you vacate your position too often. Your job is to screen the back four. You can't go roaming. So I think that's partly why Rice has been moved into an 8 role. But Partey had that great passing range from sitting at the base of midfield. I don't know if Norgard's got that to the same degree and to that same level. And when you're coming up against a low block and you're in and around the box and you squeeze the opposition back, who's going to unpick the lock apart from Odegaard? And this is my problem. Last season, we were so heavily reliant on Odegaard to do that. When his form went off a cliff, Arsenal were out of ideas and had no idea at times how to break some of those low blocks down. So I think we needed a bit more creativity. We needed a bit more flair maybe in the midfield. And I'm not sure that Christian Norgard ticks those boxes, which is, again, why I'm not overly enthused by this.
One player I remember when he came through, everyone thought he might be a midfielder, or at least might even go into the flanks, as Miles Lewis-Skelly. Obviously, he's decided at the moment that left back's his best position. His position he's done fantastically well in since October. Do you feel like there might be an idea of trying to get him into one of those midfield positions eventually?
I think Arsenal will see it as an option.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it will be plan A for Miles Lewis-Skelly. I still think he'll start the new campaign playing as a left back, drifting into midfield, doing all the things we've seen him do brilliantly since he's broken through. But I do think if you're taking stock of the squad and you're trying to figure out where we're short and where we need to improve and all the rest of it, I think if you were drawing a chart out on paper, you'd put Miles Lewis-Skelly in both those positions, wouldn't you? As a midfielder and as a defender, because I think he can do both roles.
He certainly can. All right, let's pivot to Newcastle. And no, we're not going to talk Alexander Isak, right? A lot of Arsenal fans will be hoping that that's the conversation. The Magpies are trying to strengthen, though, and it's their right-hand side this time, and they're after a winger. We know that. And Elanga seems to be top of their list. Let's hear from Ollie Klink once again with the latest.
We know that Nottingham Forest rejected a bid from Newcastle of around 45 million for Elanga. They don't have an intention of selling him, but if they did decide that they wanted to, they want north of 60 million for him. I thought he was terrific for Forest last season. 6 goals, 11 assists. He was one of their standout players. I think he would work well in an Eddie Howe team too, and it is an area they need to strengthen. You know, Jacob Murphy was brilliant last season, a bit of a surprise package, but he is the only natural right winger. And so it's certainly a priority for Newcastle in the window. Is 60 million maybe a bit too much?
Maybe. It's for sure too much. Like, how much better is he than Jacob Murphy? How much better?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point because Murphy scored 9 last season and got 14 assists. So his numbers were clear of Elanga. But to be fair, I would say that we know that Newcastle, if they are put off by that price, they are looking at other options. Johan Bakayoko from PSV, Dortmund's Karim Adeyemi, and even Mo Kudus from West Ham as well. I think West Ham are trying to start a bit of a bidding war there. So it might be that Newcastle are put off by that big price.
That big price being 60 million. Bear in mind as well that Man United sold him to Forest for 15. So they're trying to quadruple the fee.
Yeah.
I think he's had a really good season, but 60 just seems far too much on Elanga.
Yeah, it seems steep. It seems really, really steep. And, you know, we've talked about Newcastle in the past and we've talked about other clubs that are in a similar boat in terms of having their spending limited by the restrictions that they're working within. Villa, Newcastle, to name 2 really good examples. I won't have any sympathy for Newcastle when it comes to their ability to spend if they go and drop £60 million on Anthony Elanga, because I don't think he's worth that. I don't think he's anywhere near worth that.
What's he worth? Half that?
Half that, probably.
Yeah.
I think half that is probably about fair. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned. I keep getting told that today with some of my views on the transfers and transfer fees. But I just think if you're Newcastle United and you want to build and you want to take those next steps forward, you've got to be much more savvy in the way that you spend that money. We know that Newcastle have it, but we know they can't go throwing it around. So you've got to be savvy, you've got to be smart. Anthony Elanga at 60 million quid, which is what they would probably need to get to if they're going to get that deal over the line, is just crazy. They've got to walk away from that now and see.
Yeah, and you know what it is as well with that? It's, again, I mean, Ollie spoke about Jacob Murphy's numbers there. It's not the upgrade, and some might even say there's not an upgrade, by the way, from Elanga to Jacob Murphy, or from Jacob Murphy to Elanga, sorry. But if you are going to upgrade then, it's not 60 million more than Murphy. Do you know what I mean?
There's 2 types of transfers you can make when you're in the situation that Newcastle are in, right? There's floor raisers and ceiling raisers. Anthony Elanga does not raise Newcastle United's ceiling, but adding that additional depth might raise the floor, meaning that the club can cope with an injury crisis or with the need to rotate, fatigue,
which was a problem for them and has 100%. Been a massive problem for them, especially when now with Champions League team as well. It's going to be difficult to fight on all fronts, right?
Yeah, for sure. But when it comes to what you're then willing and able to spend, what you should spend on floor raisers is far less than what you should be allowing to spend on sort of ceiling raisers. Anthony Elanga does not raise Newcastle's ceiling. I wouldn't give them any better chance of achieving any of their goals next season by having Anthony Elanga in the squad.
On the flip side of that, obviously Nottingham Forest, I thought fantastic season last year. Yes, fell off towards the end and they were going to, they huffed and puffed and ultimately they don't have a big enough squad. A lot of talk about Morgan Gibbs-White to Man City. Now we're hearing Elanga potentially as well to Newcastle. It's so important that Nuno tries and keeps this team together, isn't it? For at least one more run and see what you can do by additions, not these subtractions that are going on at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. He done an incredible job. He was unlucky in the end, I think, with the way it unravelled a little bit. It was more of a levelling out than a falling away.
Agreed.
I don't like it when people sort of look at a team that's massively overachieving and then start saying they bottled it and all that nonsense. I hate it. I can't stand it. I think it's lazy analysis. They levelled out in the end, and that was pretty good in terms of their levelling out when you consider where Forest were the season prior. So they've got a great foundation to build on, but they're in the boat with a lot of other clubs whereby whenever you show a bit of promise and players show promise within your group, they're going to become targets. And you've got to be able to keep refreshing and regenerating. I think they might lose a couple of players this summer, and if they do, they've got to find the right solutions. And so far they've done that under Nuno, and Marinakis has been, I think that people don't like him because he's a controversial character.
Hey, he spends the money.
He's been great for Nottingham Forest. He's been fantastic.
Forest fans love him. Quickly on Newcastle to end. Obviously, look, Newcastle, as you say, they want to level up, don't they? They want that person that, as you say again, takes them in terms of the ceiling. What kind of profile of player is this?
It's difficult to say, really, because if you look at their first 11, I think it's quite strong.
Very strong.
But it's a squad game, and we know that. And we know with Champions League, and particularly this extended format of the Champions League, they're going to need a little bit more depth. So maybe it is a case of they need to go out and bring some more floor raisers in rather than ceiling raisers. I just think you got to be smart about what you spend on those players, because ultimately they're not taking you to another level. They're keeping you at a certain level, and that's where the art is in terms of identifying what category those players that you're looking at fit into, I think.
Yeah, me and Harry don't always agree, but I think we're in agreement here that 60 million for Anthony Langer is crazy money. Very, very crazy money. All right, stick with us. More on Transfer Insiders when we come back. Right, we spoke about Newcastle. Remember, they face Villa on the first day of the new season, but will their goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, be there for that? Villa fan Dan Bardell gave us his thoughts on the current situation. Right. One thing that Dan Bardell obviously did say, and it was honest. He's very trustworthy, isn't he, when it comes to Unai Emery? And in Unai Emery, we trust. But I don't think you could ever be happy about your best players leaving the club or be comfortable with it. Yeah, another goalkeeper will come in. I don't think it works like that. I think we've both been in situations, Liverpool and Arsenal fans, where it takes a while to replace your best goalkeeper. And the idea of Emi Martinez, who's won, by the way, best goalkeeper in the world 2 years in a row, just going and that being replaced very simply, I just don't think exists.
Yeah, you build. You get to a point where you're sort of semi-satisfied with where you are and you want to take it forward and you move on. And then all of a sudden it becomes just as important to keep your key players as it does to bring in new players that are going to refresh things and take you hopefully to that next level. There is a lot of trust in Unai Emery, and I get it. Villa were on the floor when he came in and they ended up getting into the Champions League. They had a great run in the Champions League. I understand why they trust him implicitly, but I never look at Unai Emery and think you're a guy that I want to put a long-term project in the hands of, because that's just not what he's done over time.
There's nowhere where he's been there for 6-7 years. It just doesn't happen.
And when he has, like, for example, the Sevilla place, right, where everybody talks about that and the Europa League success. The Europa League successes were great. But there are so many instances of really underwhelming league finishes as well. And it's as if because he wins the Europa League, people overlook all the other stuff. In terms of league form, Unai Emery's not an elite coach. Like, he doesn't get it right in the league often enough to be put in that category. And I fear for Aston Villa, because if they want to get past this hurdle of PSR, they're going to need their revenue to increase. The way you increase your revenue and you make that sustainable is by being in the Champions League year upon year upon year. And that's why I felt it was so important last season that they got into the competition again. They've missed out. Okay, they've got Europa League football, is something, but it's not quite the same in terms of the funds that it brings you. And I just think if they go another season missing out on the Champions League, all that work that they've done to get to this point where we're talking about them as one of the big boys again, and we're talking about them as one of the powers in English football, it can unravel so quickly.
Do you think they can afford to, in back-to-back windows, lose John Duran and Ollie Watkins?
Not if they don't have the funds to go out and replace.
Yeah. And I guess you could add Marcus Rashford to that, because he's not going to go back to Villa. They simply can't afford his wages. They probably can't afford him. So in theory, the last 3 forwards they've had in the last sort of 12 months could not be there at the start of the season for Aston Villa. That's
and listen, I think you always have to adapt in football. You always have to regenerate. You always have to refresh, renew. But you don't want to be doing that every season. You know, you want to build a team that can last 2-3 seasons, and you can figure out what the little additions are that you need, and you can just add those finishing touches and take your team on. But if you've got to keep going again in terms of that refreshment and that renewal, you're going to find it difficult. A lack of continuity is a problem. And if you lose Martinez, you lose Watkins in the same summer, you lost Duran back in January, it feels like there's a lot of work to do, and that can take your focus off of getting the maximum out of what you've already got.
Yeah, look, we touched on Europe there for Aston Villa. Let's stick with the European theme. We spoke to Andy Brassel, and he spoke about what next for Jadon Sancho.
Well, Harry, Fenerbahce are the favourites at the moment, and that's because they are showing Jadon Sancho the money and then some. So I think it's one of those ones, you know, occasionally people have a job, maybe builders, that they don't really want to take on, so they hit an unrealistically high price. And then they might end up getting offered that unrealistically high price. I wonder if that's what's happened with Jadon Sancho and Fenerbahce. You know, clearly he wanted to stay in the Premier League. He, via his agents, gave them a request for 12 million euros a year after tax. And they just said, yeah.
Wow.
And it's that simple. So even though Juventus are interested, even though Juventus are still talking to Manchester United, I find it quite hard to imagine Juventus getting to that level, especially as they've taken big efforts to cut their wage bill over the last little while. Now, this is all great news for Manchester United. Now, of course, Fenerbahce might be playing, well, I wouldn't say hardball, firm ball, perhaps, in that they're going, okay, well, we're going to offer a little bit more than the fee that United want, which we believe is around £18 million. But ultimately, like, surely United are going to blink. If they've got an opportunity to permanently get him off the books, they're going to take it.
Jadon Sancho, 25 now is Jadon Sancho. And you have to go back to 2018-19 and that 2019-20 season. So you're talking 5 and 6 years respectively to when he was that player. And that's too long for us to still harp on about how good a player is when you go back 6 years. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's the outside life. I don't know if maybe it's just a case of he just didn't develop, right? We get a lot of these young players that are superstar teenagers and just don't take that next step. And maybe it's that. But it is sad to see. Look, I hope for one that he kicks on. If it is Fenerbahce, he kicks on and puts his head down and shows what he can do. But watching him at Chelsea, I just feel like maybe it just isn't there anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, when he first came through at Dortmund and we were all watching him kind of really sort of, take the Champions League by storm, for example, and really kind of showing everybody what he was capable of, there was an excitement and a buzz around Jadon Sancho, and it always felt like it was only a matter of time before he'd end up in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, gets that move to Manchester United. Let's be clear, the environment at Manchester United isn't great.
Yep.
We've seen, I think, more talented players than Jadon Sancho struggle in that environment in recent years because of the way everything's going there at the moment. But I also think sometimes, and you're a boxing man, right? Styles make fights, people say, right? Styles make players as well. And I think that at Dortmund, he had this incredible freedom and this kind of license to go and do the things that he wanted to do. And in that league, against that style, it probably worked really, really well.
Yeah.
It hasn't translated very well to the Premier League number one. But I also think he's had some issues off the pitch as well. We haven't heard explicitly what exactly has happened, but we were hearing, weren't we, that Erik ten Hag had supported him and given him
took some time off, didn't he?
Some leeway, gave him some time off. So you could assume that there's been some issues off the pitch that have taken a toll on his playing career as well. Look, he's clearly got something about him. He's clearly got ability. There's no question about that.
I mean, look, Fenerbahce are ready to kind of break the bank. So they're almost they're putting house money on him, so to speak, right? We know Juventus are interested. So these are not small clubs. These are Champions League winning clubs. You watch Serie A lot. Obviously, we know the giants of Turkish football. What is the best league to kind of get these talents? Again, using your analogy there, styles make fights. What style of football is suited to Jadon Sancho?
I think Serie A would be a great fit. I really do. I think the Turkish league would be a good fit for Jadon Sancho as well, because there's a lot of attack-minded teams. It's quite open. There's a lot of goals scored. If you look at the goals scored in the Turkish league comparatively to some of the other leagues in Europe, you'll see that there's a fair few. And it feels like he'd be able to play with that freedom there. Plus, the standards lower, with all due respect, and Jadon Sancho should start. Serie A would have been my pick if I was.
I can't believe it's not his first choice. And look, we could be wrong. We could be talking about Jadon Sancho next week and he's wearing and holding that black and white shirt. But if Juventus knock on your door, and yes, again, we heard from Brassel here about his wage demands. Slice them in half and just go to one of the biggest clubs in world football and prove yourself again.
If Juventus knock on your door and you still go to Fenerbahce, we know about money.
And we know what type of player you are.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think that's where people will maybe stop having sympathy for Jadon Sancho. Maybe that's where the patience finally runs out. I don't know. I find it, I don't want to sort of really kind of lay into him based on the Man United spell, because
I almost have to, though, because again, he's not been that guy since 2019-20.
But look how many players at Manchester United have struck. That's my thing. That's almost his get out of jail free card.
And he's kind of got that with Chelsea as well, because they're a bit of a basket case as well.
Exactly. And if you're looking, if you're a club looking to sign him and you sit down across the table with Jadon Sancho and you say, tell me why it's gone wrong at Man United, he's got plenty of ammunition. He's got plenty to say about Manchester United, and he'd be absolutely right. That is his get out of jail free card at the moment. But this feels like, doesn't it, his last chance really to go and make an impact somewhere before we stop talking about Jadon Sancho as a really good player.
I hope so, because even that loan spell when he went back to Dortmund, 21 starts or 21 games, 3 goals. So it wasn't anything like, when he started. So again, the dip's there. But I'd always kind of sort of hope that young players can revive their careers, because again, he's only 25. And who knows, right? He goes to Juventus and rips it up. He could be the surprise inclusion in Thomas Tuchel's side. It could just happen. Who knows? All right, this has been the Transfer Insiders. Remember, you can catch the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Up next, the Sports Bar Boys, Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy.